No part of this publication may be reproduced, stored, or transmitted in any form or by any means, whether electronic, chemical, mechanical, optical, recording, or photocopying, without prior written permission of the publisher. Title: The Gospel of Arthur, frame a novel by Diego Kurilo. All rights reserved. Copyright 2014 editorial, Sophia Lux Franklin, 2054 Celsiusized ABA telephone, 45,847,071. The deposit established by law, 11,723, is made printed in Argentina. Diego Kurilo. The Gospel of Arthur frame. First ed. Autonomous City of Buenos Aires. The author, 2015, 216. He, 21 × 14 cm. 1. Legends. I. Title: CDD 398.2. Cataloging date: March 19, 2023. The Gospel of Arthur frame. Diego Kurilo. Neither our shadow persecutes us, nor are we capable of treasuring time. We are the shape of the broken mirror that always was for our luck, since otherwise we would be trapped in its fracture or silent module. Someone at the beginning and end of the time left a hole in the mirror. The nymphs rejoice when the rain makes the trees grow. The nymphs, on the other hand, cry when the trees have no leaves. With them, Apollo, still in his mother's womb, was terribly irritated and uttered this threat, which was not without effect, against Thebe. Why, unfortunately, are you testing your destiny? Callimachus, Hymn 4th to Delos. Theses on Information. 10. About Circular Time 22. The Function of Alchemy 45. The Fool in the Tarot 86th. Reflections 92. The argument of this book, Plot Chicanery 103. The Appearance of the Herm 109. A Vision of the Universal Library, Babel 127. The Agartha 137. The Litany of the Hologram 150. Utopia and Ultronia 157. Appendix 167. The word alchemy comes from the Arabic alchemia, which could be formed by the article al and the Greek word kumeia ex vimui alpha, which means cast together, pour together, weld, alloy, etc. From kumatos, what is poured, ingot, or from Persian kimia, gold. A decree of Diocletian, written in Greek around the year 300, ordered the burning of the ancient writings of the Egyptians, which dealt with the art of making gold and silver, the kimia transmutation. The Arabic word kimia, without the article, has given rise to chemistry in Spanish and other languages, and al-kimia means, in modern Arabic, chemistry. It has been suggested that the Arabic word alchemia actually meant, originally, Egyptian science, borrowing from Coptic the word Khem, Egypt. Thus alchemy was the art of Khem, or its dialect equivalent. Medieval Bohairic from Coptic Khem. The Coptic word derives from the Demotic Kmi, and this in turn from the ancient Egyptian Kmt. This last word designated both the country and the color black. Egypt was the black land, in contrast to the red land, the surrounding desert. So this etymology could also explain the nickname black magic. Egyptian greater thing greater than. Bibliography 174. Digital references and blog of interest 177. General bibliography 180. Reference films 183. Hesses on information. In the litany of knowledge, like a continuous recitation on which Arthur frame bruised an eternal and symmetrical symbol, throbbing to the eye, it resembles a great library with its shelves inside hexagons and octagons, in each of which time behaves like space. Of the same number and numen of those volumes, I would stay with only one, which influences the rest of the stories of said books in the style of fiat lux, capable of the modification in the permutation that Georg Philipp Cantorin announced so much in his hypothetical works on specular time and the permutation of ideas and sets. All this evil represents a large group of people, some like books, others like paper, and a silent wait in search of the apotheosis of the geometer. All the perversions that the imagination proposes were put into our lives by ourselves. Don't play the distracted reader. You were always the architect of the circular city, a ruin where we live, and on some occasions waste time. There is no evil there, only oblivion. With something of value, it will be difficult to recognize that a labyrinth, a room with a steep staircase and death, were placed there by the need to transmute all action into a body of pure gold. Arthur frames conversation with his friend Jose Argentino. Arthur, how is the gold product of hermeneutics and geometry traded? I heard that those who wish to obtain the work, the perfumed and velvety orichalcum ingots, are sold in meat cases whose body is gold, perhaps with some impurity. Gold that is too pure cannot be traded on the black market, nor can it be touched. The same is true of the 100-foot rainbow powder, a natural hallucinogen that is both inhaled and taken in menthol infusions. It is produced by the General Wellness Company in pursuit of the achievement of epiphany. The 100-foot powder is so powerful that they will hallucinate with extraterrestrial civilizations and pyramids on Mars, as he used to call him and only him, our Lord Jesus, whose theophoric name of Aramaic origin, W. Yeshua, Yin Yehoshua, means Yah is salvation, the destiny of nations. It depends on the liberation of the error that implies the loss of time. Sophia, Our Lady of Truth, will be a witness and scribe of said apotheosis. There is only one thing that is true, and that is, nothing can be said about this. Jesus, our pelican, giver of life, the way and the truth, Lord of justice, will reach the end of time with his body as a fish of radiant light and renewed forever, his incorrupt body made flesh, and Verb will be in us and we in him. Our Savior is God, he is the Son of sons. We will be transformed and we will obtain our body of light, and we will be one with him, and death will have no place. He will come and reincarnate in his own body forever until freeing the human race from the fatal bandage of error, until the exhaustion of all time and the end of numerical and alphabetical permutation, until the last grain of sand of time. Arthur, could you tell us something about the straight path of gold? Yes, of course, that royal road is taken care of as with anything of incalculable value. With the Guardia Camino and the police of the transoceanic route, which fundamentally takes care of the route to the Bank of Silence. In addition to the millions of kilos of gold it produces the Earth in its annual temporary rotation, they take care of each other. The great problem of our modernity is the path of metals with different degrees of purity. That path is the most important for the human race, that the traceability of our information, even on our care of the natural world, much depends fundamentally on the intra-European economy of money tracking and bank loans. Each link in the chain is paid for in live meat ingots until the world's library is filled. Perhaps of all this, only one meat book will serve, the one that the Father put there for our salvation. The elect will come like our Lord, clothed in glory, mounted on his golden donkey, and they themselves are golden. The golden donkey will show its straight and sun-filled teeth. It will smile at us and love like Corinthian columns. They are and will be perfect. Those golden donkeys never lie. They are pure as the truth. Only truth comes out of his mouth. The donkey will show its cosmic rider. Both are made of gold, therefore the golden teeth do not lie and always tell the truth, not signing any episcopal document and denying lies and errors. Contribute to the liberation of the human race until time runs out. In their gnashing of teeth, they do not utter a word. The traceability of metals and the trade in human gold of meat pallets are important. To be distributed in the time of no time, even if the Queen Mother who loves them to death incubates them, and like excessive bumblebees they participate in procreation of the Scarlet Queen. All this information on the thesis of information is resolved without information, since those who come out of the state of sleep know nothing, or rather, as I would say, they are like idiots without sleep. The greatest idiot is like a fool who has all the keys to the kingdom. He was a forgotten and unique king, a happy king, who always rode backwards, and his grade is 8.5. In the grinding of teeth of the scarlet mule, there is a number, time. This announces the huge number that tends to the past of what was. Our future is past, which is nothing. Other than the dark future of the circle magno, the pelican, the only real thing as a central point, knows that he knows nothing, and in his melancholic knowledge, he forgets everything. 999 is the number of being outside the earth and where time becomes space. Arthur, could you explain to us how to hunt gazelles? You once commented that you wanted to hunt a gazelle? Yes, of course. I will tell you. Once, I really wanted to see gazelles, and I traveled to Africa to see them. At that time I traveled by plane to the African savannah to be able to hunt them. I met on Zululand with Dr. Shaman Kurilo Mutwa. His secret name is Red Elk and the Path of the Eight Bridges, the path that leads to Sirius's, and he explained to me that it is very difficult to hunt gazelles. To be able to do it, one has to get up very early and eat lamb the night before, or a bull ceremonial and sacrificial male. From 6 in the morning to 6 in the afternoon the gazelles, like gonads, strut around and show off in a herd. We left at dawn, and according to our interlocutor, the medical shaman Kurilo Mutwa, you are grazing near baobab trees, a tree that has its roots in the sky and grows towards the earth. Within the tribe, the widest people are placed inside the baobabs, and these become coffins. They are buried inside the trees, an ancestral custom of North Africa. Preparing ourselves for the big game, the doctor drew enormous but faceless horns on the ground, as a catalyst for the art of magic and to be able to hunt the gazelles. After much regret, we reached the trees, and nearby were the gazelles of yellow hair known as the Insefa and Izimpondo Kanye Nadada Ladada, direct translation from Zulu. Its translation into Spanish horned gazelle and pati turda. We took out our rifles and killed one. I came back from Africa with the skeleton. Our Hurframe's social gathering partner was Jose Argentino, a baker by profession. He tells us about the adventures of Arturo, a world-famous story writer, who signs books in New York on Fifth Avenue and sells numbers by the millions. He retired thanks to his wife's talent that inspires and inspired him, rather breathed life into him. Otherwise it would be consumed like firewood in the forges of time, in the time interval of the creation of the permutation, which he always dreamed of. Jose Argentino asks Arthur, "What are you?" "I don't know what I am." I suppose that in this adventure theater play, Variete Theater, I played the role of a clock and the Harlequin's wardrobe. There was something collage about this, late postmodern style. I always preferred the Greek theater of masks or the classic one written in Koine Greek. When I was a child, I liked to play with clocks. I would take them apart and put them together as a bird sings, but there were always pieces left over. Many times I hugged the clock, and other times it went a long way. It is not easy to realize that the world is a clock, but a broken one. Just like in my youth, the clock loses or advances a lot. Cut off the boa's head and tail and free yourself from evil. Jose Argentino. Is there something that is true, Arturo? Only one thing. The rest is a lie. If everything is a lie, what is that thing that is true? I will say it in a veiled way, like the cup or holy chalice of Valencia, which was purified in the blood of the Savior. Our true Salvata, you died first. Why death appears first. You have drunk the drink of the gods, and therefore so much you don't die. But that non-death appears first. In that instant you encounter extreme beauty and truth. Over time you get closer to knowing what happened with your death. Your searches are always to find out what happened. If you talk, you quickly get closer to knowing what happened. Therefore, those who know do not speak much and do not know by ridding themselves of that evil. The highest judges of the Supreme Court of the Axis Mundi are idiots who know nothing. God forbid and free us from knowing. The land of the dead is a land in its April full of knowledge, very difficult to get out of there. It is not important to know, just silence and doing nothing. Freedom from evil, do nothing, or the wheel repeats itself endlessly. Remember that chaos is a gas in the center. Jose Argentino. Is there only one life, or do we live in a circle of incarnations? The golden beings always reincarnate in their golden bodies, and always repeat the same life, like a litany, like the first Adam, the first architect of which Jesus is a glorious and magnificent reflection, shorthand for the end of time. The rest of the beings incarnate in a wheel of which 3 lives are of glory and suffering. In ancient times these 3 lives were called the trisection of the angle. Turning to the left heals the evil. Jose Argentino asks Arthur Frame, about who is he? Where are you hiding or dreaming of Arthur? I use it as a pseudonym. I dream that I am an architect who lives in Buenos Aires, Argentina. My also fictitious name is Diego Kurilo, surname of Polish-Ukrainian origin. The meaning of it is hot smoke that comes out of the mouth. I never really had a name. Dai is an Indo-European prefix meaning 0 degree, shape, and shine. Since I was born, I can't stop shaking. It's an essential tremor, product of the wheel of reincarnations. Therefore you will recognize me for my trembling. Argentine Jose. On the purpose of all this, Arturo, is there a purpose for the universe, or a meaning? There is no purpose or sense, always towards the past, but since everything tends to look at its shadow, information moves faster than light. What you have not done yet in the future actually has already happened, because there is only one universal instant, only one instant where everything happens. All things are already done. You only pretend to create or deconstruct. What you do in the future that has already been done has quantum repercussions in the past, like a bomb of facts and events. The past is made up of the future. The future cannot be changed. The past is malleable. Let's write them in another way. If you write, don't speak. When you speak, you create paradoxes that will be seen in the past as the death of your father, which in essence has always been you. All your loved ones have always been you, in a wheel that repeats itself if you speak. The fluttering of a butterfly in the future of what it is has repercussions in your life, like the death of your parents. It is better to save time and every word. We are born with a set number of numbers or letters. Oh, keep them and your body will shine. It has always been you, the author of the architecture of your life. Every accident, every signal or sign has been you. The architect, the great architect of your life. From one life to another it has been you. You have shaped your life, creating a tower of light. It comes out in pairs like the primordial Adam and Eve. The dark door appears first, in the center of the labyrinth that you have created. The big door that leads to chaos is black and big, bout circular time. All maze, it is a prefiguration of its architecture, and of the first attempt to confuse man through a city in ruins. The labyrinth of our life was created by us, life after life, not taking the necessary errands, perhaps leaving too many loose ends, suffering and suffering due to doubt or bad information, creating bad architecture. We must return to innocence and put aside all kinds of ambrosia or nectar of knowledge. Is it perhaps the return to a dear life that pretends to get somewhere, an emotional container of our suffering? Or are we getting closer minute by minute to the moment of knowing? What happened yesterday when we died? The death appears first, no need to speculate. We take the ambrosia. You still haven't discovered that we died before? Do not get angry, Mr. Warden. Surely you too, unaware and reckless, were invited to this abomination. We have died many times in the course of a life plagued by worldliness. Evil as a glorification is that we never remember. The first labyrinth was dedicated to the worship of the god Min. Its architects planned its planimetry with a square plan, as a central monument in the necropolis. Every labyrinth is a funerary complex. It takes many lives to realize that oneself is immersed in a lot of ruins, which fill the physical limit of space. In its center is his mother's bull, Min, as fecundator. All these molds of confusion and the loss of the era are resolved by always turning in the opposite direction to the sun. About the silence, you don't need to ask, nothing is needed. If you have the urge to speak, remember no God speaks or has ever spoken. Their sounds are guttural. Your protection will be your buckler made of emptiness. There is no time. Everything happens in the now. Do not call attention. Do not comment, learn to. Hope that everything will be revealed in magical ways, everything in its time without effort, and you will know wonderful things left there for you. All lives are you. Your body is gold. Take care of it, because it will accompany you forever. Min was one of the oldest Egyptian deities. Her cult dates back to pre-dynastic times. He hailed from Coptos, near the Wadi Hammamat caravan route, where he was the protector of traveling merchants and miners. Min was a lunar god related to the calendar. He was linked to royalty as he ensured abundance. He was considered the son of Ra, or of Shu, and Kenton Labor was his mother-wife. He formed a couple with Repet in Atribus, and with Aparetisis in Greek times, his son being Colanthes. He also formed a triad with Kadesh and Reshep. On a stela in the Louvre Museum, he is cited as the son of Osiris and Isis. With the calm of the sea and recovered strength, the sea hides secrets and hidden doors, which will be pierced by two. They were made for two. You will feel the true universal heartbeat in love with her. Girl, I've always been in love with you. Always in love, but unlearned in love. I would like to see her again even if she is in my dreams. The myth of Icarus and Daedalus says that Theseus, a legendary hero, came to Crete with the mission of killing the Minotaur. Ariadne, Icarus's wife, helped him to enter the labyrinth and then he could get out of it. King Minos did not like it, because for him the feat showed that the site was not as safe as Daedalus had claimed, so he decided to punish the architect, locking him up in his own construction. The punishment fell not only on Daedalus, but also on his son, Icarus, who was very young at the time. The two were condemned to live inside that monster, however. The ingenious geometer was not willing to resign himself to that fate. He used an intelligence exercise to get out of there. The myth about Icarus and Daedalus says that the latter made some request to the king in exchange for submitting to his will. He said that he wanted to do some works to honor Minos, and everyone believed him. That's why they brought him feathers and wax, without asking what for. With these elements, Daedalus built wings for himself and for his son Icarus. The only way to escape the maze was by flying. Hesiod, in his Theogony of him, Cronus tells us, held an intense grudge against Uranus. He had earned the enmity of Gaia, mother of Crono and the other Titans, because after having engendered them he kept them in the bosom of her mother and did not allow them to see the light. Gaia created a great flint sickle, and gathered Crono and his brothers to convince them to kill Urano. Only Crono was willing to comply with her will, so Gaia gave him the sickle and made him set up an ambush. When Uranos met Gaia, Cronus attacked him with the sickle and castrated him. From the blood, or according to a few sources from the semen that splashed on earth, arose the giants, the Erinyes and the Malayas. The Bible says about God and time, He is the one who changes times and ages. Daniel 2:2-1. He is the one who determined a time for everything. God has his own sense of time. With the Lord, one day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. 2 Peter 3:8. Time is illusory, it is easily lost, just like words, since there is only the eternal now, it is always now. As in a broken mirror, each fragment is part of a puzzle in the now. All the moments of creation are versions of the only moment that is now eternal. For some it will be the visualization of a mirror in its fracture. In the essay that gives the title to Borges's book History of Eternity, and that is complemented by two other later ones, The Doctrine of Cycles and Circular Time, the partly guilty writer liberally discusses duration and its cadence in eternity, mainly from the Platonic, Christian and Nietzschean points of view. As Borges himself declares in the prologue of the work, eternity, it is a splendid artifice that frees us, even fleetingly, from the intolerable oppression of the future. Jorge Luis Borges. It is interesting that from the perspective of the great cycles of the religions of India, one day of Brahma represents with respect to the solar year and creation of Manas. Our solar year calculates how 4,300,000 x 0000 years. There are 14 Manas. Therefore, there are 420 Manas in a Brahma month, and 5,040 Manas in a Brahma year. Brahma lives for 100 years of his age, and therefore there are 5,040 times 100, or 504,000 Manas in the lifetime of Brahma. There are innumerable universes, with a Brahma in each of them, and all of them are created and annihilated during the Purusa's breathing time. Therefore one can simply imagine how many millions of Manas there are during one breath of the Purusa. There is no return to the Kafkaesque or Borgesian style, but rather a crystalline time in the now that will manifest itself as a broken glass. In our hands we hold the crystal with which the world was born. Time can be understood as a geometry in the now, an architecture of lives. Everything we do in different physical lives, Kyo participates in the now. Less than reincarnation is real for those of us who have had memories of those lives in the now, but all these lives are coexisting in the only instant that exists. Plutarch in Parallel Lives deals with this theme as well as the transmigration of the soul these lives create. Geometric patterns as vectors in the fabric of all these movements, a subtle catastrophe of accidents and aphorisms, creating the particular architecture of continuous existence. Déjà vu and synchronicities, they represent aberrations or alerts, since they allow us to discover that the great building of the world is beautifully incomplete, a ruin as a circular plan of architecture, as a beautiful and oldest city. Continuum of a new narrative. a universe full of axioms, waves of information interacting in the now. What we do in one life affects another and all the others. We are the result of an intervention based on forgetting what it was. From us, in us. That just like a great charade or doll of fate is where we are going, to the land of oblivion. The Bible says that He is the one who changes times and ages. Daniel 2:1. He is the one who determined a time for everything. The Bible says that everything has its time. Ecclesiastes 3:1-4:11. The Bible always speaks of prophetic fulfillments that will take place in God's time. Galatians 4:4. If God is time, He surely clings to Him like any wheel too big to be defined. The number first is exposed as any dialectic as a reflection in a somewhat diffuse way. Something vague as in a mirror. Time not only for God, but also for man, represents an eternal return to what was. The future is in the past, within the thesis of chronological return, a retrograde movement. Time is an illusion. Absolute reality is circle upon circle. All reincarnations coexist in the eternal now, like a wheel that will repeat itself in its permutation. The higher self manifests, all lives in the now, like a great mandala, each life influenced by all the others as an illum. We have died and been born in the eternal now, an infinite number of times, and all these births and deaths are hidden and at the same time coexist in the now, the only moment of creation. Coexistence as a cohabitation is the existence of a person, an elixir or thing, at the same time as another, all things as a simulacrum in the now of the greatest of all simulacrums or machinations, which is the existence of a single fundamental particle that is disguises of many. We do not remember that we have died many times in the now. It is only perceived when the illusory mirror of forms and time is broken. There are versions of ourselves experiencing different geometries of lives, just like shadows all chasing their yesterdays. We are all things. A deep emotion of remembering yesterday, what the Taoists call the great, content with having a self, but it has a simulated network of centers that simulate a self, just as a form of entertainment. We have died many times in our life, but the higher self decides to continue with this physical life and manifests itself again as a physical body. We are closed in time, that of course in a simulation of the now or multiplication of the now, and we suffer from forgetting ourselves in us. It would be too painful to realize that we are the ones who place all our aberrations there life after life. Also as a complex mechanism of quantum reflexes that tend to the manifestation of pandemonium-type forms, neither good nor bad. It's just the response to any aggression that simulates evil. There is a large number. It tends towards the permutation of its being. This permutation may have a certain number of days. The numeral spring makes it move towards its numen, which contains the instant of all instants. As a whole, it is a library of versions of that single awful moment. Throughout the Roman Republic, the great collections of books were in the private hands of important families. Caesar was the first who, perhaps driven by his knowledge of the Library of Alexandria, entrusted Varro with the design and organization of what would have been the first public library in Rome. But Caesar's own assassination aborted the project. Thus the first public library falls to Asinius Paulian, founded in the Atrium Libertatis, between 38 and 28 BC. Immediately Augustus added two others, the Library of the Temple of Apollo on the Palatine and that of the Portico of Octavia. Of all these the orb is the largest. For each instant, a set of biblos. It manifests as your reality. According to what you want to manifest, physical reality is just a reflection of your interior. We live in our particular material dream. Life is a dream. If everything is false, reality is nothing more than a very broad version of the false. The phenomenon of lights and fantastic beings is better understood knowing that the way in which reality is constructed is more similar to a cinema. This hologram behaves like a mind. It responds to what we think, and our actions fundamentally to our word, never contradicts us. We have to broaden the way in which we understand reality, knowing that in essence our look affects it. We need to create a new anthology of reality. We are the ones who have put there, in our life, all those symbols of our awakening. Every accident, every confusion is put there by us. If the entire book of our life is imperfect, is there one that is not? or we are only burned like paper lifetime after lifetime. Physical reality is a simulation, a very fragmented, infinite simulation full of oblivion, in addition to being or representing a finished gear that starts again every time we speak. I call it the infinite Brahman, the universal mind. A mind, a simulacrum, a lack, a belief that will be in tune with your interior. Everything is mind, everything is mental form, and as every shadow must be illuminated by the passage of the sun at noon, the man beyond postmodernism is trapped as in any previous time, in a new loneliness product of our time of pixel and computer. He is full of machines with visors of all sizes, with the ability to see in them even visions from outside the earth. And at the same time this makes the solitude more fragrant, like a thief who disguises himself as a friend. How many of these false friends and brothers wanted to take my body and even my breath? I do not despise them. But it is most melancholy to realize that the highest form of spirituality becomes robbery in the hands of those false brothers. The universe is an idea, a simulation or material dream. You have created it by your own decision. The universe arises from your interior from the inside out as a material dream that manifests as a reflection of your interior. We literally read into ourselves. Too much that continuous reading translates into sorrow and melancholy for what it was. Change your first and you will see that change reflected on your exterior. Change your symbolic interiority and see that change reflected as the reality that best suits what you want to manifest. This is possible always and only always, if we keep our mouths shut and do not try to convince or bore them with our knowledge. It is important to remain silent. It is not necessary to be givers of any dharma. If you don't take me seriously, you will remain locked in the wheel until time runs out, only after eternity has elapsed. Borges commented that there is an order in the universe, a system of periodicities and a general evolution. It seems evident to me. No less undeniable is for me the existence of a moral law, of an intimate feeling of having done well or badly on each occasion. About the Divine Comedy, at the end of his descent, Dante and his guide meet Lucifer. The emperor of a kingdom of pain spreads his spider web over the world like a great puppeteer, is on his throne still, surely empty that like the Buddhas their thrones are empty, they represent beings that are not, in absence pure gold in the center of the earth. With the intention of heading towards the other conical hemisphere, Virgilio, who is currently holding Dante by the hand, clings to Lucifer's flank and slides down the giant's body. Lucifer is the ruler of hell and the main antagonist of Dante's Inferno. Once God's most glorious archangel, Lucifer was expelled from paradise as punishment for leading a rebellion against him. Now a twisted and demonic being, he plots his return to his rightful place in paradise. For Dante, Lucifer did not represent an angel but is inverse of him, no horns or tail, rather the six proper wings of the seraphim, but not feathered or iridescent, but 6 large dark bat wings, similar to large sails, 2 under each face. Thus, after a certain point, the travelers are suddenly turned upside down with respect to Lucifer. Astonished, Dante then asks his guide to explain what happened, to which Virgilio replies, Inferno, Canto Oxycants, 106 to 111. You still suppose you are behind the center where I attached myself to the infernal worm Lucifer, what a hole in the world. While I descended there you were. When I returned you passed through the point to which weights tend everywhere. Your imagine still lives in the center. Ov io mi presi al pel del vermo reo che mundo fora. Di la fosti cotanto quant io sesi. The point at which, if tragandogna part I weighed. Let us remember at this point that Aristotle affirms that every element tends to go towards its natural place as quickly as possible and by the shortest path. The natural place of heavy objects composed of the element earth is the center of the earth, and towards there they fall in a straight line, the faster the heavier they are. The latter, of course, is an idea about the acceleration of bodies that modern physics will discard. As we can see, the place where Lucifer is located represents for Dante the geometric center of the universe and the place towards which all heavy bodies, composed of earth, they converge, a clear heritage of Aristotle's teachings. Alejandro Gangui. Our past has been created by our future. What we did in the future shapes our past like an ocean wave or an animal tail. Within the now, what we do in the future from the perspective of the eternal now reverberates like quantum waves in the past. The effect in the past is greater than what we do in the future. Extreme emptiness appears first in our youth than we did in the future. That is like a dark door that will be repeated from life to life. The one that leads to the greatest light leads upwards. Although there is only this moment, only and always now, therefore everything has already happened. We only get closer to knowing what happened, including our death. No, don't be scared, first listen. He died first, and in hasty reading of this moment, you will realize that you are getting closer to knowing how such a thing happened in the first place. Some upstart geometer to mathematics will call it infinity or tape of alternative events. Look for everything you want to manifest and think about yourself. Visualize yourself that way to be able to materialize that reality as a material dream in the now. The ability to imagine will be the ability to recreate the world. You will discover a finite but great world of forms indeed, stories about stories, pages of a book as big as the most sacred and great number. Magic for Jorge Luis Borges is a different causality. It is assuming that, in addition to the causal relationships that we know, there is another causal relationship. In this case, it is knowing the center of all things, since the universe is full of centers. My heart is one, therefore I allow myself to create. Also, the difference between technique and magic is a historical variable. W. Benjamin. The number of all the atoms that make up the world is finite, though inordinate, and only capable as such of a finite, though also inordinate number of permutations. In infinite time, the number of possible permutations must be reached, and the universe must repeat itself. Jorge Luis Borges. Once the finite number of permutations has been reached, the universe repeats itself in a sublime recapitulation of everything that was. The orb is what it is, now eternal in a single instant. In other words, a museum of shapes and accidents. Time makes it go like a wheel. It is perhaps the greatest number, the great wheel, that is, everything imaginable by God. Some writers believe that the goal of the universe is immortality. Personally, I do not want to be immortal. Surely we all are, and that is our fatigue. And blasphemy. How to become mortal again. Do not think that nothing happens, simply because you do not see your growth. Great things grow in silence. Buddha. The cosmos tends towards the infinite return of what was, a sublime and painful recapitulation. What a beauty in the burning of books. Who can escape such ardor? But only here and now. Reality exists within you, within your being, and manifests as physical mental forms within an infinite idea, this museum of mental forms or collection of accidents that some call the universe. That one repeats justice in the phrase, I believe with the word. On this John reminds us 1:1-25 NBV. Before anything existed, the Word already existed, and the Word was with God because the one who is the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were created, and there is nothing that he did not create. In him was life, and life was also the light of humanity. This light shines in the dark, and the dark cannot put it out. God sent a man named John as a witness to speak to everyone about the light, and through him all would believe. Juan was not the light, he only came to guide everyone into the light. The true light, the one that illuminates every human being, was already about to arrive in this world. He who is the light was in the world, and God created the world through him, but the world did not recognize him. He came into this world, which is his, and his own did not receive him. But to all who received him, to those who believe in him, he gave the right to be children of God. The children of God are not born of blood, nor by natural desires or by human will, but are born of God. And the Word became man, and dwelt among us. And we have seen his glory, the glory that belongs to the only Son of the Father, in whom love and truth abound. Juan spoke of him and at the top of his voice shouted, This is the one I told you was coming after me. But he is more important than me, because he existed before me. From the abundance that is in it, we have all received blessing upon blessing. Through Moses we receive the law, while through Jesus Christ we receive love and truth. No one has ever seen God. but the only Son, who is God himself and is always in union with the Father, has taught us how he is, so that we can know him. The Jews from Jerusalem sent priests and temple attendants to ask John who he was. This is what John answered them: I am not the Christ. He said he without, refusing to admit it clearly. They asked him, And who are you then? Are you Elijah? He replied, I am not. Are you the prophet? No. They said to him, Who are you then? We have to bring an answer back to those who sent us. What can you say about yourself? John responded with the words of the prophet Isaiah. I am the voice of one who cries out in the desert. Prepare a straight path for the Lord. The envoys of the Pharisees asked him, If you are not the Christ, neither Elijah nor the prophet, why do you baptize? In the now and how material dream creates an outside world. Like the carpenter, he first has to think about the table in order to manifest it. Less than the universe in its desperate rush creates the carpenter and the table at the same time. Table and carpenter have always been there. Only the illusion of time confuses the carpenter and thinks that he is the creator, greater than each. Physical life is a very particular perspective within the eternal now, a point of view in the now, always increasing, always receding from what was. The path of liberation through consciousness is not equivalent to hard intellectual work, but can be a complementary consequence of it. That is why, while discursive reason can draw logical conclusions, meditation on Upanishadic sentences and aphorisms is only carried out in intimate consciousness knowledge as an effective realization of consciousness. Bhavana. The consciousness of the individual resembles the consciousness implicit in Brahman, insofar as it dissolves in it, just as a drop of water is included in the depth of the sea when, even without disappearing, it has ceased to be a particular drop. If everything has already happened, it happens in the now, we will realize that we live inside a ruin, a labyrinth. In Egypt it was believed that the pelican had a predilection for the ruins of architecture and that it fed its children with its blood to revive them. In the Egyptian apocalypse, its conduction and revelation is reserved for the pelican. Every pelican is a foreshadowing of Christ, in all his splendor and glory. Movement is an illusion. Within the now, consciousness moves between different parallel realities within the eternal now, creating the illusion of time and space. They are like vertical and infinite book pages, a permutation like a computer. The most important thing is to change our representative vibration of the world we want to inhabit. It is advisable for the seeker to think that we experience a state of bliss and of intense and profound happiness in the dissolution of the ego, an experience known as samadhi. Ecstasy due to extreme emptiness, or the house of the ancestors, appears first in the life of the seeker, product of the now. We reach a state of enlightenment and awaken to our consciousness. In an advanced state of samadhi, no thought arises in the yogi's mind, not even on the object with which he began the meditation. The yogi disappears. His body, his ego, and the universe is visualized empty from the heart. We inhabit what we place there. All realities coexist in the now. What you put out there is what you receive. Everything arises from the seeker's loving heart, including the Buddhas. The pelican of common zoology is an aquatic bird, with a wingspan of 2 meters, with a very long and wide beak, from whose lower jaw a reddish membrane hangs that forms a kind of bag to store fish. That of the fable is smaller, and its beak is short and sharp. True to its name, the plumage of the former is white. That of the second is yellow and sometimes green. Even more unique than their appearance are their customs. With beak and claws, the mother caresses the children with such devotion that she kills them. 3 days later, the father arrives. This one, desperate to find them dead, pecks his chest open. The blood shed from their wounds revives them. This is how the bestiaries refer to the fact, except that St. Jerome, in a commentary on Psalm 102, I am like a pelican of the desert, I am like an owl of the wilderness, attributes death from the children to the serpent. That the pelican opens its chest and feeds its own blood to its children is the common version of the fable. Blood that gives life to the dead suggests the Eucharist and the cross, and thus a famous verse from Paradise XXV 113 calls Jesus Christ our pelican. The Latin commentary of Benvenuto of Imola clarifies, less than it is called a pelican because it opened its side to save us, like the pelican that revives dead. children with the blood of the breast. The pelican is an Egyptian bird. The image of the pelican is common in ecclesiastical heraldry and is still engraved on ciboriums. Leonardo da Vinci's Bestiary defines the pelican like this: he loves his children very much, and finding them in the nest, dead by snakes, he rips open his chest and, bathing them with his blood, brings them back to life. Jorge Luis Borges, He Function of Alchemy. The great merit of magic and alchemy, his daughter, was to postulate the unity of matter, to such an extent that some alembic philosophers had believed they could assimilate it to light and lightning.
Opus nigrum ni 1966.
Marguerite Yourcenar. In the darkness of the night, telling stories about silences, murmurs, and keys, all this is part of the science of alchemy. For some, a great metallic eye in the sky in a hallucinogenic way. The function of alchemy is not to be powerful, nor to live longer, nor quality of life, quality nothing. Imagine living 1,000 years, lest we live only 200 years like monkeys in cages and they throw peanuts at us. Alchemy is useless. The function of the alchemist is not to be rich or powerful, but to influence positively so that the bad guys in this world are less bad. Alchemy is useless. The alchemist. Slow in the dawn a youth, they have spent the long reflection and the greedy vigils, considered self-absorbed the sleepless braziers and alquitaras. He knows that gold, that Proteus, lurks under any chance. Like destiny, he knows he's in the dust of the road, in the bow, in the arm, and in the arrow. In his dark vision of a secret being that is hidden in the star and in the mud, beats that other dream, that everything it is water, which Thales of Miletus saw. There will be another vision, that of an eternal God whose ubiquitous face is everything, that will explain the geometric Spinoza in a book more arduous than hell. In the vast eastern reaches the planets pale from blue. The alchemist thinks of the secret laws that unite planets and metals, and while he thinks he's playing on fire the gold that will kill death, God, who knows alchemy, turns it in dust, in nobody, in nothing, and in oblivion. Jorge Luis Borges. The Spirit of God hovered over the water. In the book of Genesis we find something very interesting. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth, all was confusion and there was nothing on the earth. Darkness covered the abysses while the Spirit of God fluttered over the surface of the waters. For this God uses his spirit ruah in Hebrew to say, wind or spirit, the wind of God. It is only through that spirit that the precept becomes reality in the entire universe. If there is no spirit, there can be no order, and throughout the history of humanity, God has manifested his desire for order. Unlike the madman who represents the potential manifestation, never manifested. In Genesis we see the following theological affirmations: 1. Unique God. 2. Almighty, 3. Sovereign. 4. Total King of all creation. In biblical theology the word shalom is used Hebrew word that means peace or harmony. Its linguistic root being lishalem, which means to complete, repay, pay, compensate, which is the place where everything works in harmony, just as God created them. Eden is the place where God reigns and where he placed man as his own. To praise God, abbot equal to steward, so that he may participate in maintaining shalom. This is the human biblical principle, which tells us that God is creator, his creation being by separation and shalom. The objective of alchemy is participation in universal glory. Not everyone understands it. Few read the word and meditate enough to participate. Jose Argentino, could you tell me about the chaos? Arthur Frame, I'll tell you a story about the colors red, black, white. There was an alchemist in France who surfed in the pyramids. His name was Zosimus of Panopolis, Greek. Of course not without paying with Orielco ingots to the chain and wallet of the largest money for debt. He wanted to set up a big oven, to cook charcoal like crazy. Fight the cold, and don't stay there. Leave everything because you will lose. Only if you do you will know. This alchemist tells us about Compostelle, way to the stars, the dung of the stars. It is that it is not a version of the famous and repeated Campus Stellae, field of stars, which reminds us that it was stars that were pointed to the Libradon forest, where the tomb of Santiago was located. There are 3 possible interpretations. The most seductive says that Compostela would come from composite, which means something like arranged, or adorned. Adding the diminutive Ela would allude to a beautifully built small city. Based on this description, we would understand that in the Libradon forest there was a small and beautiful town of Roman origin. The second theory has many followers. In this case, Compostela would have an origin long before the discovery of the Apostles' tomb, and even before the Romans. It would be a word made up of two Celtic words. Thus, Comboros, that is, rubble, plus steel, which means mining or iron, would literally result in metal dump. The Scarlet Witch from her pussy makes metals. It is a bag of metals like the sun, everywhere to a high bidder. She prints the cents, the sign of the beast, the men of gold, her house a bank central. The last proposal gives Compostela a more funereal meaning, but it brings us back to the presence of a cemetery in the Liberdon forest. It would come from the Latin verb componere, which means to bury. If we put this verb in the participle, compostum, and add the suffix ella, it does not allow us to assume that Compostela would be the place where the Apostle Santiago lies buried. He comments in his book, Maria the Jewess. It is not known exactly if it was Mary the Jewess who invented it, but this instrument is attributed to her, since the first description of it was made by her. This description appears in a writing by Zosimus. I have to describe the tribikos, because that is the name of the device made of copper, and described by Maria too, the transmitter of art. She says the following: make 3 tubes of ductile copper a little thicker than those of a copper confectioner's pan. Their length is to be about 1.5 cubits. Opening, proportion to that of the head of the alembic. The 3 tubes must have their openings adapted in the shape of a nail to the neck of a light container, so that they have the thumb tube, and the 2 finger tubes joined laterally in each hand. Towards the bottom of the head of the still there are 3 holes fitted to the tubes, and when these have been fitted these are soldered into place, the upper one receiving the steam in a different manner. Then placing the head of the still over the earthen pot that contains sulfur and covering the joints with flour paste, place glass jars at the end of the tubes, wide and strong, so that they do not break with the heat that comes from the water in the middle. Sometimes to define ourselves we amputate huge parts of our lives. The fistera is what remains at the end of the work. Sit in one place and walk around. Arthur Frame on chaos. Ancient Greek, Chiomicron, Romanized, chaos, is the state of extreme emptiness without ego and without a body, a state of consciousness. Orientalists call it samadhi, state of extreme emptiness, which precedes the creation of the universe, the cosmos, mainly in the Greek myths of creation. In Christian theology, the same term is used to refer to the gap or abyss created by the separation of heaven and earth. In chaos, or samadhi, you will really feel the eternity of the black void. Only eternity is felt there, but there is no ego that can explain the process. The word chaos is associated with yawning and gas. About samadhi, everything is empty, and from this emptiness the universe arises. Some call it black and thick water. After this water, the universe is seen emerging from the poet's heart to the last drop. Remember, samadhi is death. When the water descends, you can leave the dome of creation and contemplate the unreality of the universe, where within this unreality, we are the basin. Chaos and cosmos go hand in hand. The maximum chaos is a maximum order, samadhi. It is the goal of all meditation. It is the union with the cosmos, a spiritual ecstasy by union with the totality. The ego dissolves in the ocean of ultimate reality that is a limitless and eternally present void. The experiences of extreme void or totality in the Buddhist, Taoist style, as well as the experiences of spiritual ecstasy for being in tune with these intelligences, are not rare in the ufological phenomenon, nor in spiritual searches. Many of the experiences recounted by the experimenters of the phenomenon of contactism are of the spiritual reverberation type, experience that may or may not include the visualization of cosmic teachers, such as Christ Sananda or Ashtar Sharan, Archangel Michael in his cosmic aspect ET, or the Virgin Mary herself in one of his Benjamin Solari Paravicini prophecies, tells us that Mary will snatch away at the end of the test a cataclysm that would happen on earth in the coming years. To the meek and humble children, and these will be saved, taken out of the earth in millions in ET-type ships, perhaps never to return. The experience of extraterrestrial contact and abduction include in most cases spiritual ecstasy. An example of this are the experiences recounted by José Lagos in Argentina, or Eugenio Siragusa in Italy. The idea that Christ will return in golden ships from heaven to reign on earth can be found in different reports of contact from the 1950s, mainly in the figure of Siragusa in Italy, since his contact has a Christian basis. Also in the contactee Giorgio Bongiovanni, a disciple of Siragusa. In both cases, a contact with deep Christian roots can be reconstructed, but reorganized into a new spiritual aesthetic with extraterrestrial symbology and close to the New Age. Also in the contactee of Chilean origin Maria Helena Sarmiento, where she herself comments how in Buenos Aires in 1988, she had an encounter with extraterrestrial beings and that they were preparing the return of Christ. Interestingly, one of the greatest cosmologists, Brian Swim, calls it the ineffable and the mysterious, the hidden heart of the cosmos, 1996. Well, these are characteristics that religions attribute to the ultimate reality, which is called by 1,000 names: Tao, Yahweh, Allah, Olorum, God, the gravid void of energy. If it is not God, God is always greater, is its best metaphor and representation. The fundamental thing is not matter, but that gravid void. She is one of the emergencies of this original source. Thomas Berry, the great American ecologist, cosmologist, wrote, "We need to feel charged with the same energy that gave birth to the Earth, the stars, and the galaxies. That same energy gave rise to all forms of life and the reflected consciousness of humans. She is the one who inspires the poets, thinkers, and artists of all time. We are immersed in an ocean of energy that is beyond our comprehension, but that energy ultimately belongs to us, not by domination but by invocation." The Great Work, 1999, 175, that is, by opening ourselves to it. If so, everything that exists is an emergence of this frontal energy, cultures, religions, Christianity itself, and even figures like Jesus, Moses, Buddha, and each one of us. Everything was being gestated within the cosmogenic process to the extent that more complex orders arose, increasingly internalized and interconnected with all beings. When a certain level of accumulation of that background energy occurs, then the emergence of historical facts and of each singular person occurs. Leonardo Boff is a columnist for JB Online and wrote The Gospel of the Cosmic Christ, 2010. Translation by Ma Jose Gavito Milano. There is a brief commentary by George Steiner, where he speculates on the life of the poems that is applicable to the experience of encounters and abduction phenomena. The vast majority static and profound transformation of being. A great text can spend centuries waiting. I think of the extraordinary essay in which Walter Benjamin says, "There is no hurry." A great poem can wait 500 years without anyone reading or understanding it. It will arrive. It is not he who is in danger, it is the readers. George Steiner. In the case of the most varied sequence of events of abduction, ecstasy as well as multidimensional encounters with beings that border on the angelic, it can take centuries for the correct reader to interpret what it was all about. Contactism is very similar to the burning of books. One remains captivated by his own history and burned to the point of singing. Decay. The passage of time is destructive, not only erasing numerous facts, dates, and figures from our memory, but also obscuring the image we keep of those who have played an important role in our lives. It also deforms what we keep from ourselves. Keeping a diary rigorously is a formidable protection against this erosion, but at the same time, it makes our mistakes more obvious and our failures more flagrant. Both a source of experience and humility, it puts the successes of which we are most proud in the perspective of those even more remarkable achieved by others. Dr. Jacques Vallée. In the case of the experience of ecstasy due to extreme emptiness or samadhi, in the Buddhist Taoist style, this experience is also close to contact. The ego disappears and one feels oneself merging with the totality. Generally in these spiritual experiences at the limit of actually, the ego dissolves, and at the end of the experience one sees the universe emerge from one's own heart. For this reason the Egyptians in ancient times did not remove the heart from the body, and in India the Hiranyagarbha is valued golden egg, but as a creative matrix. Sanskrit, literally the golden matrix, poetically translated as universal matrix, is the source of the creation of the universe, or the cosmos manifested in Vedic philosophy. In a spiritual experience of ecstasy, the universe is seen to emerge from the heart of the experimenter. The heart is visualized in gold in an experience of fusion with the totality. These experiences are not unrelated to Christian-type experiences. As Saint Teresa de Avila comments during her transverberation, I saw an angel on my left side in bodily form. It was not big, but small, very beautiful. A face so fiery that it seemed like one of angels, very elevated, that it seems they are all on fire. I saw in his hands a long golden dart, and at the end of the iron it seemed to me to have a little fire. Saint Teresa of Avila. It seemed to me that I put it through my heart several times and that it reached my entrails. When I took it out, it seemed to me that it took them with it, and it left me all ablaze with the great love of God. The pain was so great that it made me give those moans, and the softness that this great pain gives me is so excessive that there is no wish for it to be removed, nor is the soul content with less than God. It is not bodily pain, but spiritual, although the body does not stop participating somewhat and even fed up. It is such a soft courtesy that passes between the soul and God, that I beg His goodness to please anyone who thinks I am lying. The days that this lasted I walked, as if enthralled. I did not want to see or speak, but to burn myself with my pain. That for me was greater glory than all that have taken what was created. Saint Teresa of Avila Life. Santa Teresa de Avila Vida. Capítulo 29. Santa Teresa. The Hiranyagarbha, golden egg. It finds mention in a hymn from the Rigveda RV 10.121, known as the Hiranyagarbha Sukta, which suggests a single creator deity. Verse 8, Yodivesv Adi Deva Eka Sit Griffith. He is the God of gods, and none apart from him. Identified in the hymn as Prajapati. The concept of the golden womb is first mentioned in the Vishvakarma Sukta RV 10.82.5, which represented the primal womb resting on Vishvakarma's navel. Images were later transferred to Vishnu and Surya. It is a womb, but it is placed in the heart of the Creator, like a golden heart, from which all things arise. Dreaming the future is perhaps the largest and greatest source of all our dystopias.
La misma simbología, pero en la cultura egipcia. El escarabeo escarabajo cumplía la función de ser el símbolo creador después de la muerte física, también de protección del difunto y fuente de la palabra.
Literally, when it was placed in the bodies protecting the heart, it was found written from sacred texts. It was placed in the tombs in the place of the heart that was never removed from the body. Carved of green crystal, it was an amulet of life and power, shaped dung beetle Egyptian scarabæus saucer, which represented the rising sun, and was a symbol of resurrection in Egyptian mythology. In life it provided protection against evil, visible or invisible, giving daily strength and power. In death, whoever carried it acquired the possibility of resurrecting and being able to achieve eternal life. The scarab was linked with the god Jepri, form of Ra as the rising sun, and was the symbol of the constant transformation of existence. The race of beetles has no female, but all the males expel their sperm in a round pellet of material which they roll by pushing it from the opposite side. Just as the sun seems to return to the heavens in the opposite direction of its own course, which it is from west to east. Plutarcho. The purpose of the heart beetle was to ensure that the heart would not testify against the deceased in the judgment of the dead. Another possibility is suggested by the transformation words of the coffin texts, which state that the soul of the deceased can transform XPR into a human, a god, or a bird, and reappear in the world of the living. An experience through emptiness is an experience where the ego ceases to have relevance. It ceases to be an experience in every sense because the experiencer disappears, is no longer there, and only infinite emptiness remains. The ego dissolves in everything that is. The ultimate reality manifests itself as an infinite void. Decay. Our consciousness is a singularity, a vibrating void, like a string that vibrates billions of times per second. Within a story called the universe, consciousness is not caused by our physical brain. It works as a decoder of the world and is the same one that creates the experience of unidirectional time forward. The experience of samadhi makes you see the process on which objective reality is created, which is more similar to a material dream, like reading a three-dimensional book, which what we call the objective world, as if you had the pages of a book in your hand. If you leafed through a fast book with static images very quickly, you manage to give it life and they become mobile. But if the process is slower, you will verify that the images they are seen as they are actually static. During a samadhi experience in the Buddhist, Taoist style, the external world stops and disappears, our consciousness merges with everything else and the ego disappears. In this way the samadhi is perceived, where time and space are illusory, since everything takes place in a single magical and eternal moment that has existed forever and will exist forever. Objective reality is a consequence of consciousness moving between these sheets, or parallel realities. The universe represents an infinite book. These flat dimensional spaces create the illusion that one and things move. Movement is an illusion. There is nothing outside, it is just an infinite black void. Our objective reality represents symbols of our interior, symbolic aspects of our interior. In essence, we read inside ourselves what we have inside. DK. Moving within this universe of infinite experiences is a continuous look within ourselves. Since there is nothing outside, the outside is an illusion just like time. The only real thing is him now. All this shows you the samadhi. Yes, reality is a metaphysical construction of the consciousness product of the fact that we are multidimensional beings. We could not experience time and space if it were not in this metaphysical way. Our true being is the spirit, the divine spark, what real in us that first manifests as a soul or vital energy at an infinitely lower level, and the soul dreams lives, all in the now like a great mandala, all in a single magical and eternal instant. The universe in a mystical experience arises from our heart, complete to the most distant galaxy, and this is an atom of our infinitely empty body. Nothing became aware of its non-existence. Spiritual experiences in the vicinity of ships are static and include in many cases experiences of emptiness. According to Egyptian culture, registration chap, XXB. The inscription has the name and position of the owner, cap. 30b, of the Book of the Dead. Osiris, he military scribe Hati, the justified, says, "Heart that I received from my mother, heart of different ages, do not rise up against me as a witness, do not contradict me in court, and do not be hostile towards me in the presence of the keeper of the scales. You are my Ka, vital force, who is in my body the creator, who makes all my members prosper. Go to the place which is prepared for me. Do not commit that my name stinks to the judges, who make people mortal to renewed beginners." Exercises to achieve samadhi. At samadhi, which is a state of consciousness of dispossession, everything disappears, including the ego. It is reached mainly through meditation. There are also exercises whose purpose is to help the body and mind prepare to achieve it. The yoga whose meaning is union, ecstasy, glory, is a path to that level of consciousness of becoming gold. Others can be the contemplation of a symbol, the painting of a mandala, or the repetition of a mantra. Fundamentally, the silence that in essence is gold. DK. The samadhi in the religions of the East. For Buddhism, samadhi is the discovery of the Buddha's own condition. The search of yoga, and also in Buddhism, is that of the achievement of samadhi. It is also closely related to the experience that in Zen Buddhism is called satori. For Hinduism in general, samadhi is unity with Brahman, the impersonal God. For the Vishnuists, it is the mental perception in which the meditator visualizes the body of the god Vishnu. In other words, the devotee becomes Vishnu. The samadhi, a reflection. For Hinduism, samadhi is an illumination in which the meditator transcends the phenomenal appearance, and thus frees himself from samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and reincarnation. It is considered like this, together with the supreme knowledge or jnana, the moment of moksha or liberation. Source, Wikipedia, a state in which consciousness transcends the phenomenal appearance, time and space are dissolved in a state of temporality, the eternal now, where the physical body ceases to have relevance, and the ego dissolves in totality. In the end, it is seen arise all creation from the heart of the meditator. It is a state of ecstasy in which the mind is fully aware, although the body does not feel and ceases to have relevance. And when it returns to its ordinary physical state, it brings with it and remembers the past experiences in the state beyond the physical. One feels all things in their fullness, being the emptiness itself infinite and eternal. In the religious practice of Buddhism, samadhi is the goal of the Eightfold Path, as well as the liberation produced by the practice of Tantra. 2 types of samadhi. The first type is savikalpa samadhi, a trance, vision, or experience, even involuntary, that comes unexpectedly and also leaves unexpectedly because you are not yet in control, after many more years of meditation practice. The following type would be reached. In the XD, there is a voluntary control of the state of samadhi, being able to enter and leave it at will, with a minimum of meditation. This supreme state was achieved by great beings such as Gautama Buddha, Mahavira, or in the 19th century, Sri Ramakrishna, who could enter nirvikalpa at will and read the minds of his disciples in the universal mind. We are talking about incarnations of divine will and love, or avatars. Samadhi is the state of consciousness that is reached when, during meditation, the person feels that he is merging with the universe, becoming an infinite void. In various religious and mystical traditions of East Asia, such as Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, and yoga, samadhi is considered a state of consciousness of meditation, contemplation, or recollection in which unity is felt to be achieved with the divine. The Sanskrit term samadhi in Devanagari alphabet comes from sam or samyak, complete, and adi, mental absorption. The ultimate goal of the meditative practice of yoga is the achievement of samadhi. Samadhi is a sought-after goal within both Hinduism and Buddhism. In general, in the experience of samadhi, one is standing or walking, or simply standing in a paradoxical state that arises randomly. When a blow is felt, shaktipat, the master's blow, then a process of dissolution of the ego begins, which at first will manifest as an expansion of the experimenter's consciousness outside the physical body until he feels all things without limits and enters the hall of mirrors. The body image, it is infinitely reflected like a hall of mirrors, and one is aware of all those reflections. Then the ego dissolves into emptiness, and the universe arises from our heart. Asanyasin, Swami Loksananda, visited the Maharshi and inquired about the types of samadhi. Maharshi expressed, "Staying in reality is samadhi. Staying in reality with effort is savikalpa samadhi. To immerse yourself in reality and remain unaware of the world is nirvikalpa samadhi. Plunging into ignorance and remaining unaware of the world is deep sleep. Head bows, but not in samadhi. Remaining in the pure natural primordial state without effort is sahaja nirvikalpa samadhi." D. It is said that one who remains in nirvikalpa samadhi for 21 days must necessarily leave the physical body. Samadhi means passing beyond dahatma buddhi, the I am he body idea, and the non-identification of the body with the self is a conclusion that precedes it. External samadhi remains in reality while witnessing the world without reacting to it from within. There is the stillness of an ocean without waves. Internal samadhi implies the loss of consciousness of the body. Samadhi, according to Ramana Maharshi, types of samadhi. D. Is loss of body consciousness a prerequisite for obtaining sahaja samadhi? What is body consciousness? Analyze it. There must be a body and a consciousness limited to it which together constitute the consciousness of the body. This must be in another consciousness that is absolute and unaffected. Stay in it. That is samadhi. It exists when there is no body consciousness because it transcends it, and it also exists when there is body consciousness, so it is always here. What does it matter if the consciousness of the body is lost or retained? When lost it is internal samadhi, when retained it is external samadhi. That's all. A person must remain in any of the 6 samadhis for the sahaja samadhi to be easy for him.
D. Does Maharshi enter nirvikalpa samadhi?
If the eyes are closed, it is nirvikalpa. If they are open, it is savikalpa, although differentiated in absolute repose. The ever-present state is the sahaja natural state. D. Sri Ramakrishna says that nirvikalpa samadhi cannot last more than 21 days. If it persists in it, the person dies. Is it so? When the prarabdha is exhausted, the ego is completely dissolved without leaving any trace behind. This is the final release. Unless the prarabdha is completely exhausted, the ego will continue to arise in its pure form, even in the jivanmuktas. However, I doubt that statement about the maximum duration of 21 days. It is said that people cannot live if they fast for 30 or 40 days, but there are those who fast longer, for example, 100 days. That means for those people there is still prarabdha. Samadhi Pada 51 Sutras. According to Patanjali, samadhi refers to a state of happiness in which the yogi is absorbed in the 1%. The author describes yoga and then the means to achieve samadhi. This chapter contains the most famous verses. Atha Yoga Anusasanam. Yoga begins with discipline, and Yoga Sita Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is the control of the Sita Vrittis, that is, thoughts and feelings. The past is past, the future is uncertain, only the present is in our hands. The greatest duty of man is to live in the present and share his joy with his peers. Frankly speaking, the human being is the luckiest of all living creatures. Compared to the entire cosmos, man is as small as an atom, and yet he can comprehend the magnitude and immensity of creation, which is truly amazing. He obtains immortality by understanding the unity between the microcosm and the macrocosm. As I mentioned yesterday, whoever cultivates the sowing of love in the field of his heart is a true Christian, Sikh, Hindu, or Muslim. In fact, he is a true human being on earth. Man cannot exist without love. The principle of love is Hiranyagarbha. This Hiranyagarbha is situated on the right side of the human body and the physical heart on the left. The physical heart on the left side is going to be left one day by some circumstance or other. The Hiranyagarbha, located on the right side of the human body, is always correct, immortal, eternal, and all-encompassing. It is present not only in human beings but in birds, beasts, and every living thing. The Vedas say, Aswara Sarvabhuthanam. God is present in all beings. Isavasyan idam jagat. God pervades the entire cosmos. It is love that originates from his Hiranya. The three principles of reaction, resonance, and reflection have originated from the Hiranyagarbha. Sai Baba Discursos. Unable to recognize his true identity, man is wasting his life in pursuit of temporary, fleeting, transitory, and ephemeral pleasures. As I told you yesterday, gold loses its value, brilliance, and identity when mixed with different metals such as silver, copper, and bronze, so the heart that can be compared to gold loses its value, brilliance, and intensity as a result. From its association with the metals of worldly desires, this is the present struggle in the world today. Man behaves like a demon, evil and bestial, because he has forgotten his divine nature. Divine love originates from Hiranyagarbha. This divine love lives by giving and forgiving, while selfish love lives by receiving and forgetting. This divine love is essential for man. Sai Baba discourses, Samadhi of Sri Aurobindo, and the mother, Mona Sarkar's mother. She's awesome. His presence vibrates, concrete, throughout the Samadhi, and its influence penetrates and touches the central being and awakens the consciousness to the spiritual life. Even the agnostics, the disbelievers, the ill-willed people who come, out of curiosity to visit the Samadhi, return amazed by a mysterious alchemy and find an inner peace, because there, he pours out his peace and compassion on him constantly. This is what bathes them when they pass in front of it. It is an incredible activity overloaded with the force and his presence of him. Samadhi of Sri Aurobindo and the mother, Mona Sarkar's mother. When I look into the Samadhi and see what is happening there, I am amazed to find this dazzling column of light vibrating with transformative energy and force. It rises. Like this, Mother makes an upward motion with her hands, with a splendor and brilliance like an outpouring of light throughout the Samadhi. It is the new light materializing. At night, when everything is calm, there are some entities that cleanse this place of everything that people have left behind. All formations of falsehood, desires, impatient pleas, all kinds of complaints, ill wills, and diseases, as well as like the hostile forces, and make this place peaceful and pleasant. They purify the whole environment with so much love that their presence is felt. Samadhi of Sri Aurobindo and the mother, mother of Mona Sarkar. It is he who is there, in the divine body, himself divinized, the representative of all humanity, he who by his own effort, by his tapasya, and by the sadhana he has done in his body, has made his body glorious. The realizations and experiences that he has had, what he has accumulated in his body through this yogic effort, have charged his body with transformative power. It is charged, dynamically charged with overflowing strength and light. It is this that envelops the entire atmosphere. All around is his presence. It endures because it is the supramental force and shows no sign of abating. He cannot. Samadhi of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. Setprem's Mother, 1963. Basically, the real power of the Guru is filling in the gaps. To get in touch, when you are in the higher planes, to get in touch with the highest, or to get in touch with your soul, your inner psychic self, or to get in touch with the Supreme, but not many can do that. That's what I saw when I spoke to you the other day about what I called a bath of the Lord. The room was full, really full of a presence. You can't even call it a vibe. It's much more than a vibration, it's a presence. But when people walk in, they don't feel a thing. Or if they do, they don't even understand. It doesn't correspond to anything in their consciousness. But if I focus a particular vibration in your consciousness, I put you in touch with it. And suddenly they feel something with the impression that it is something new. It is nothing new. What is new is his ability to perceive the thing. In general, this is how it works. The Lord is everywhere. His vibration is everywhere. But what is new is the ability to feel or be aware of him. From all eternity he has been there. For all eternity he will be. Over there, Mona Sarkar, Mother, you know that I have not done pranam in the grave, the samadhi. But when I see others doing it, I think that I am a wretch, and that I do not pay any homage to it. But Mother, I have never felt that I should do pranam. Mother, it is not a rule that one should do pranam. Only those who feel the need to do it should do it. It is far more important to be faithful to the spirit and teachings of Sri Aurobindo, and not to do anything contrary to his teachings than to prostrate yourself before a grave. Samadhi of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. The following poem was written by Paramahansa Yogananda, whose legacy has greatly contributed to establishing a vision of life that is much more integral, humane, and spiritual. Samadhi is the highest state of consciousness or enlightenment according to yogic philosophy. In this poem, the master describes the glory of this cosmic state. Vanished the veils of light and shadow, vanished all vapor of sadness, scattered from the auroras of vainglory, dissolved the gloomy sensory mirage. Love, hate, health, disease, life, death, they died, false. Shadows, on the dual screen, waves of laughter, abysses of sarcasm, melancholic eddies, mixed in the vast sea of happiness. The storm of Maya has been silenced by the magic wand of deep intuition. The universe, subconsciously forgotten dream lurks, ready to invade my newly awakened divine memory. I live outside of the cosmic shadow. That cannot exist without me, although the ocean exists without the waves. They cannot survive without it. Dreams and awakenings, the deep states of Turiya, present, past, and future, are no longer for me, if not an eternal present and a future for everything. Planets, stars, stardust, earth, volcanic eruptions of final cataclysms, horns of future creation, X-ray glaciers, fiery electron flood, thoughts of all men, past, present, future, every blade of grass, myself, humanity, every particle of universal dust, anger, greed, good and evil, salvation and lust. I transmuted everything, I assimilated everything. In the vast ocean of blood of my own unique being. Embers of joy that fueled my zeal. Blinding my teary eyes, they burned in immortal flames of bliss, consuming my tears, my limits, my everything. You are I am you, knowing, known, all one. Tranquil, unalterable emotion, eternally living, ever new peace. Blissful beyond all imagined expectation, happy samadhi, not in an unconscious state, or mental anesthesia with no voluntary return. Samadhi extends my conscious realm, beyond the limits in my mortal frame to the furthest limit of eternity, where I, the cosmic sea, behold the little me floating in me. Neither the sparrow nor the grain of sand passes or falls out of my sight. All space floats like an iceberg in my mental ocean, colossal container. I, from everything made, by the deep, long and thirsty meditation taught by the Master, comes this heavenly samadhi, The moving murmurs of the atoms are heard, the dark earth, the mountains and the valleys, liquefy and mix. Flowing oceans become vapors of nebulae. Alm blows on vapors, prodigiously opening their veils. The oceans are revealed in luminous electrons, until at last the sound of the cosmic drum vanishes the material lights in eternal rays of all-pervading happiness. I came for joy I live, and in sacred joy I am confused. Ocean of the mind, I drink in all the waves of creation. The four veils of solids, liquids, vapors, and light rise free. I myself in everything, I enter the great I myself. The agile and sparkling shadows of mortal memory departed forever. I integrate in my mental sky, down ahead and very high up. Eternity and I, a united ray. A small bubble of laughter, I have become the same sea of joy. Paramahansa Yogananda. Yogananda taught his disciples the need for direct experience of the truth, as opposed to blind faith. He said that the true basis of religion is not faith, but intuitive experience. Intuition is the ability of the soul to know God. To know what religion really is, you have to know God. Yogananda describes what his first experience of samadhi, or superconsciousness, was like in chapter 14, entitled, An Experience of Cosmic Consciousness. For example, when he began to see for the first time through the symbolic third eye of the spirit, he recounts that he could see in all directions, not only forwards, but also to the sides, backwards, up and down, being able to also see through solid objects like walls, etc. In order to reach and experience this state of samadhi, the absolute cessation of all movement and activity of the body would be necessary, stopping breathing, brain activity and metabolism, with which the total and absolute disconnection with the outside world and with what would be produced, that binds us to it, the body, which in turn limits and binds our consciousness, which once freed from the limitation of the connection to the body, could expand inconceivably. Yogananda calls this bodily state called samadhi in yoga, suspended animation, which would be a kind of reversible or temporary death, in which the body is totally dead, but the consciousness is totally awake, expanding without limits in an unimaginable way, until they become one with God. The universe then feels like one's own body. This state would only be reached after several lifetimes of meditation practice. Firstly, it is a sporadic and uncontrolled experience, savikalpa samadhi, similar to the mystical trances of Saint Teresa of Avila, Saint John of the Cross, and other mystics from other religious cultures. After long additional practice, total control nirvikalpa samadhi would finally be achieved, being able to enter and exit this state at will. This state would have been reached by few people, among whom Yogananda cites Jesus and Krishna, whom he considered the highest teachers and yogis of the West and East respectively. Jesus, according to the Gospel of Aquarius, a book written in 1908 by the American writer Levi Dowling, 1844 to 1911, and others, would have traveled to India between the ages of 14 and 30, would have learned and practiced meditation with the highest yogis and gurus, and would have reached the highest grade, the Christ grade. He taught that Kriya Yoga and other meditation practices help people achieve that understanding, which he called self-realization, in English to realize oneself, being realize. To realize, which in Spanish has been copied as self-realization. Yogananda taught his disciples the need for direct experience of the truth as opposed to blind faith. He said that the true basis of religion is not faith but intuitive experience. Intuition is the ability of the soul to know God. To know what religion really is, you have to know God. Static and spiritual experiences, such as samadhi, which in essence is not an experience as the experiencer disappears, are close to the proximity of extraterrestrial type events. Humanity will go into ecstasy from the proximity of ET-type ships. Many of these vibrate at high frequencies, and people nearby will enter ecstasy as the samadhi, or experience of rapture. Karma is everything you have made in your life. All lives influencing the others. Hang from the future and see the past clearly. DK. Samadhi in Pali and Sanskrit, high, in the schools of Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, Sikhism, and Yoga, is a state of meditative consciousness. Actually, it is the consequence of silence. When this is understood, it is gold. In Buddhism, it is the last of the 8 elements of the Noble Eightfold Path. In the Ashtanga Yoga tradition, it is the 8th and final member identified in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. In the oldest Buddhist sutras on which several contemporary Western Theravada teachers draw, it refers to the development of a luminous and inquiring mind that is even-tempered and attentive. In yogic traditions and the Buddhist commentary tradition, on which the Burmese Vipassana movement and the Thai forest tradition are based, it is interpreted as a meditative absorption or trance, achieved through the practice of dhyana. Sarbacker, Stuart Ray, 2012, Samadhi, The Numinous, and Cessative in Indo-Tibetan Yoga, SUNY Press. The most important thing is to have an interest in nothing. Nothing is achieved by doing nothing. Nothing is useless. The Scarlet Lady is a permit of the possible. Be crazy. Luck is as much what you are allowed as what you will dare to do.
Andre Melby.
He fool in the tarot. The madman finds himself outside of time, a circle that runs free. He has all the natural elements in a bag. He stands at the beginning and end of the deck, seen as a huge circle of good and bad. The Fool is one of the 78 cards in a tarot deck. In tarot card reading, it is one of the 22 major arcana, sometimes numbered 0 the first or XT the last. However, in decks designed for playing traditional tarot card games, it is usually not numbered, as it is not one of the 21 trump cards, and instead serves a unique purpose of its own. Making a book is building a wall. The Fool is titled Le Mat in the Marseille Tarot and Il Matto in most Italian-language tarot decks. These archaic words mean the fool or the beggar, and may be related to the word checkmate in relation to the original use of tarot cards for gambling purposes. Death is a modified state of consciousness. Death is a friend. The entire tarot represents different states of consciousness of the link with the star Sirius. Of all of them, I prefer lovers who love each other in silence. It is always wisdom that chooses the young man and not the other way around, in the search for archetypal love. But this young man, he will marry wisdom without knowing it, and as a bride, since the roles in this misfortune are altered. In early tarot decks, the Fool is often depicted as a beggar or vagabond. In the Visconti Sforza tarot deck, the Fool wears tattered clothing and stockings with no shoes, and carries a stick on his back. He has what appear to be feathers in his hair from him. His unruly beard and feathers from him may relate to the lore of the wild man or woodwose. Another early Italian image that relates to the tradition is the first and lowest of the series of so-called tarocchi di montagna. This series of prints containing images of social roles, allegorical figures, and classical deities begins with Misero, a representation of a beggar leaning on a cane. A similar image is contained in the German Hofamterspiel. There the Fool, German Narr, is depicted as a barefoot man in a robe, apparently with bells on his hood, playing a bagpipe. The Marseille Tarot and related decks similarly depict a bearded person wearing what may be a jester's hat. She always carries a bundle of her belongings on a stick, called a bale, slung across her back. He appears to be being chased away by an animal, either a dog or a cat. The animal has torn its pants. The animal, surely enormous as a monumental dog, perhaps in the style of the Prince dog, also of enormous stature of name in the style of Edward of Woodstock, with respect to this man. And I have told you now, before it happens, so that when it happens you believe I will not talk much more with you, because the prince of this world is coming, and he has nothing in me. But so that the world knows that I love the Father, and as the Father commanded me, so I do. Get up, let's get out of here. Juan 14:29-31. In the Rider-Waite deck and other esoteric decks made for cartomancy, the Fool is shown as a young man, unknowingly walking towards the edge of a precipice. In the Rider-Waite tarot deck, he is also depicted with a small dog. The Fool holds a white rose, a symbol of freedom from baser desires, in one hand, and in the other a small bundle of possessions, representing untapped collective knowledge. In the Papist tarot, the letter O appears, in his head or the acronym OU, whose representation is the 28th inch of the oldest Mason's rule in the world, the Egyptian sacred cubit. It represents the Egyptian character in the shape of a sparrow. Its sound is O. In the Marseille deck, and other similar decks, the Fool is represented as a bearded person who wears a jester's hat and always carries a bundle with his belongings hanging on a pole on his back. He is often shown being chased by a dog or cat, who have ripped his pants. We heal ourselves from what we did to ourselves. Surely some mother woman intervenes in the process. In the Rider-Waite deck and other esoteric decks, created for cartomancy, the fool is depicted as a young man who inadvertently walks to the edge of a precipice, carrying a small bundle of possessions in one hand and a white rose in the other, which symbolizes freedom from worldly desires. This unique life, we are going to take care of it as unique. Passing the king of Israel through the wall, a woman shouted at him, saying, "Help me, O my lord king." Teking 6:26. I was young, and now I am old, and I have not seen the just forsaken, nor his offspring begging for bread. Psalms 37:25. In Ciudad Juarez, 1911, the battle that bears his name took place, where Sergeant Buenavista and Corporal Chinga tu Madre had to defend it by shooting accurate beeps into the heart of the Lieutenant Bombarda, known as Bubalu, falling dead, thus being able to free himself from time contained and finally being free from all evil. In Beirut 1976, the same record player was played again, and the LP was repeated, but this time the authors are called First Gargantua Sergeant and A. Puny Lieutenant. The results were the same: children murdering their parents and parents protecting themselves from being killed by shooting their children. The same song, the same LP, being hunted for what they know or for any excuse. The universe is a great LP, which is repeated every time one says a word. All our yesterdays were first in our mouth, a treacherous and malignant one that gives handle to the song or repetitive recitation. Something that I never mentioned. What Arturo Frame is going to tell us now is important. They broke into my house and blew up a huge safe that I had in the middle of the living room with books and important papers from all the books that I put together, only one in my life. After collecting books, I came to have more than 8,000 at home, but I would only keep one, and there were 999 pages left over from that book, or 998. Perhaps only one page of that book would work. The future is in the past and below is above, just as inside is outside. Once I was very, very cold in a paradoxical and hallucinogenic state of the epiphany type. It began with my feet that were filled with blue fire that burns with extreme cold. I returned to my body in regular time, only to discover that my body was not my body, if not that my body was made of gold. We created with the word abracadabra. One creates with the word efflections. Jose Argentino, I ask Arturo, what is the real meaning of exegesis? Since we await the Savior of the world and the first Adam as the first architect, our Lord Jesus, our Salvator, who will bring the good news again, and we will be one with him, we will be in his body, about the name of Jesus. Jesus is a theophoric masculine proper name of Aramaic origin, Yeshua, Yehoshua, and has spread to Western culture due to the influence of Christianity, being the birth name of Jesus Christ. Christianity was the great heir to the Roman world. Jesus means Yah is salvation. Yah is an apocope for Yahweh, the most frequent proper name in the Tanakh for God in Judaism, and by extension in Judeo-Christian religions. In some sectors Yeshua is used, this being a possible phonetic transcription, although it is uncertain and depends on the reconstruction of various ancient Hebrew dialects, while the rabbinical literature of the Talmud and the modern Hebrew spelling, Yeshu Yesu, is used. Ye is the Indo-European prefix for the moon, hence the Hebrew name for the moon city Jericho, Hebrew. The pelican with his blood will cleanse us of our sins. There is a relationship of humanity with the star Sirius and its main giver of life, Jesus. From the star Sirius, threads of love and wisdom arise that reach the planet as golden threads and make possible the ascension hanging from the stars. The son of our sun is the Sirius sun. The Lord will return in his huge golden ass, which will show its straight teeth, and its mouth will only give the truth, and will be fair with the just and implacable with those who are not. Yesu is a mirror of our greatest desires and fears, since the Salvata will have its parousia, glorious advent of Jesus at the end of time, not as a lamb, but as a judge. Yah is salvation. The moon is salvation, since Yah, Yeh are Indo-European prefixes for the name of the moon, like Ah, Dhwetj, the god Thoth in his calendrical lunar aspect. The moon is the great mirror where the world looks at itself. In Buddhism, Bon, also spelled Bon.
Tibetan Jie, Weili Bon, Ipalasa dialect Fo.
The
Bodhisattva figurines, the future Buddhas of
compassion possessing a single body of golden light throughout the eternity. They reincarnate in their own body. They carry magic circular mirrors hanging at the height of their hearts at the height of the moon's heart, which in its mirror shines above all reality, since these Buddhas see reality in a reflective way. Hence, the Buddha is called the absent one, since the ego totally dissolved in the fundamental emptiness, samadhi. Bodhisattva is a term from Buddhism that refers to someone embarking on the path of the Buddha. The Greek term exegesis, from the Greek synsigmaic from agneola, to lead, graphically represents an explanation or critical interpretation of a text. In the case of universal exegesis and the universe seen and understood as a set of biblos, books, its interpretation will be that of a universal library, like the one dreamed of by Jorge Luis Borges, The Infinite Babel. The general and episcopal set of architecture, human set, which of course will be people interested in the union, and these as books, biblos set of books, which in all cases will be burned in the ambiguous furnace of time. Time, which is nothing more than a simulation, since it is always now, is perpetuated in the future, like a song that is repeated over and over again. In an unequal way, it is not symmetrical, but regularly, and if the universe blurs its perversion, from the Latin pervertere, overturn, invert or turn, its primordial music. The universe as a set of books possesses in itself the mannerism of permutation that, upon reaching its climax, begins again in a sublime recapitulation of what has already been lived. Reincarnation is a wheel that repeats itself just like the universe repeats itself, in always simulated but overwhelming ways, a sublime recapitulation of what has already been lived in both cases. The rope is given by speech. The term is traditionally applied to the interpretation of biblical works. In modern usage, exegesis can involve critical interpretations of virtually any text, including not just religious texts, but also philosophy, literature, or virtually any other genre of writing. The phrase biblical exegesis can be used to distinguish Bible studies from other critical textual explanations. The sense of exegesis that I have applied in my studies was directed to time and its rolling. What is Arthur time for you? I will tell you about an experience that I had as Arch Diego Kurilo, my paronym, and I will use this story to answer this question that in my opinion can only be announced from plain geometry. The universal shape could well be a giant truncated cone, or a flat saddle, a parabola, or a set of them, if the universe is flat where the information is. Framed on the surface of a black hole with the application of information of about and zeros, these will be linked in geometric positions such as hexagonal or octagonal type meshes. This planimetry would lack number 3, since it is false. I was in the visceral, hinge, and antipolar year of 2013, in the place where I see my afternoons go by, when one night there would seem to be no chance in this or in any other thing. A force awakens me at the pendulum hour of 3:14 p.m. in the morning, as if it were a puppet, a golem or rather a karagos, in Greek, Kapayunk Turkish karagos, is a character from Greek folklore related to the Turkish karagos, on the theater of black shadows and long as hooves. These Greco-Turkish characters of import, since they arrived in Anatolia from the land of black mud, Egypt literally ha-ka-ta, hwbtk, pthh, which means house of the Ka spirit of Ptah, god of the architecture. The name Anatolia derives from the Greek Anatole, which means the east or more, literally dawn, comparable to the derived Latin terms Levant and Orient. The dancing rush of the night raised in me. Knowing how to walk in the house, I went out dressed, in my shadow to be able to observe the east that manifested itself as a paraplexia, leaving me perplexed. When leaving, out of the corner of my eye I saw a circle of universal orients of enormous dimensions, with black and dark pupils, a thick broth and often difficult to digest a disc like those mentioned by Marcelino in his book Rerum Gestarum Libri the Quince, known in Spanish simply as Historias, was written in Rome as a continuation of Tacitus's Historiae in rhythmic prose. This record, whose blackness will overshadow the successive nights of my life, fundamentally due to the final reflection on time, turned my enormous jaw towards its Knowing will, in the manner of the alchemical black sun, or sun at night whose preferential and mnemonic reading in reference to Amon the hidden, will be in his Numen, said orb whose huge diameter could verify cities like Laputa, flying city of the fabulous of Gulliver's travels, part of the rope of the same, was hidden in the surrounding architectures of a city in decline like my Buenos Aires, decadence marked by the maladministration of the Republic. The cities and the heights are not new on our planet, since from ancient times the Vedas remind us that the Vimanas worked on liquid mercury, and the Atenor of the old devil turned the corner from time to time, looking at the maiden and her lack of shadow, that of extreme beauty and divine smile. From the neighborhood of Parque Chacabuco, Buenos Aires, I am guided like a puppet to a Corinthian column of light, a cylinder of crimson yellow color, and entering the container. It pulls me up like a living and conscious light, projecting a bitter taste. In me enabling the apotheosis of the geometer, since my profession is architecture, I am transported to the heights like the prophets of antiquity, who in most cases were not aware of the act or theatrical plot in which they participated to good or bad. I was able to recover healthy humor and conscious judgment within the black circle, conversing with a vaporous figure in the shape of a whirlpool of infinite force. In ancient times they were called dragons, like him, dragon of fire from so many cultures, also wise men with the body of a dragon. About the calves, the fire dragon is a play in 3 acts and a prologue, divided into 9 scenes, by Jacinto Benavente, premiered in 1904. In the imaginary eastern kingdom of Nirvan, King Danassar, with a weak personality, he sees himself unable to govern properly and prevent the intrigues of the court. Adventurers from the European kingdom of Selandia arrive in the country and infiltrate the court to seize the riches, with the acquiescence of the king, but against the opposition of Queen Dasarata and the people of Nirvana. The kingdom of Selandia, like Magonia, is hidden in the clouds. It appears only when it is necessary to steal something, people or material things. About dragons, according to Borges, the dragon has the ability to assume many forms, but these are inscrutable. In general, they imagine it with the head of a horse, a serpent's tail, large lateral wings, and 4 claws, each equipped with 4 nails. There is also talk of his 9 resemblances. His horns resemble those of a deer, his head to that of a camel, his eyes to those of a demon, his neck to that of a serpent, his belly to that of a mollusk, his scales to those of a fish, its claws those of the eagle, the soles of its feet those of the tiger, and its ears those of the ox. There are specimens that lack ears and that hear through their horns. It is customary to represent him with a pearl which hangs from his neck and is an emblem of the sun. In that pearl is his power. It's harmless if they take it off. History attributes to him the paternity of the first emperors. His bones, teeth, and saliva have medicinal virtues. He can, according to his will, be visible to men or invisible. In the spring he ascends to heaven, in the fall he plunges into the depths of the waters. Some are wingless and fly on their own. Science distinguishes various genres. The celestial dragon carries on his back the palaces of the divinities and prevents them from falling to the earth. The divine dragon produces the winds and the rains for the good of humanity. The terrestrial dragon determines the course of streams and rivers. The underground dragon guards the treasures forbidden to men. The Buddhists affirm that the dragons are not less abundant than the fishes of their many concentric seas. Somewhere in the universe there is a sacred cipher to express its exact number. The Chinese people believe in dragons more than other deities, because they see them so often in the changing clouds. At the same time, Shakespeare had observed that there are dragon-shaped clouds. Sometimes we see a cloud that's dragonish. José Luis Borges. Between the man's skin and his meat, the potato, and his skin, there is the red meat with the skin of demons, the man in an excessive search to understand. The symbols of him being the same central symbol of the universal is approaching the moment of his death. That happened in the past. Prematurely he seeks his death without knowing it. The steam and the time and the swirl of vaporous light. He asked me if I could solve the time, which with the years I could. The time is number and number, everything that the imaginable and unimaginable contains, anything that we do. In our future that it is already written. a manicure of many lives describing symbols in many lives. The circle of life is nothing more than an architectural plan created in the now by ourselves. All perversion was put there by us. From physical life to physical life, you are placing on the wheel every symbol, sometimes perverse, perverted, of what is behind the mirror of appearances, to discover that the guiding axis is, it is only you, there being nothing outside and no one. All our exterior is symbols of our interior. I remember that my father as a last gift left me his gold watch, and a 333-page book on the yoga of dreams and the number of Sivaivi, which had a palindrome ticket. Numbering 32,523. From this number can and should be reduced to 32,523 minutes, is equal to 3 weeks, 1 day. Seen in a mirror, 900,523 minutes. See, time runs backwards, and you are your father and your children. Thanks to the fact that the Queen left the mirror of your world broken, you were able to get out of the darkness, for better or worse. The broken mirror expelled you from eternity. The argument of this book, plot, trickery, the ruse. With a strong autobiographical component, the architect Diego Kurilo in the Gospel according to Arthur Frame, his paraphrase not his nemesis, tries to explain his metaphysical experiences on a disintegrated and mistreated part of himself, a fragmented character named Arthur Frame. His symbolic meaning is strong as a bear, and Frame is Marco. I remember that for Dolly the frames were more important than the loom. Who after a youth in which he was part of the counterculture and postmodern culture of the flatland type, superflat of the 1980s and 1990 in Argentina, is thrown into a theological search after being reached by ufological and cosmogonic experiences, such as Samadhi and the ECM, in addition to the apotheosis of the laser, which he himself somehow identifies with a divine source of knowledge or universal mind, an elevated aspect of himself, which he calls Pachamama. Arthur Frame will then embark on a quest in which he assumes that one day he will find something real if he only searches hard enough, articulating and varying his beliefs over and over again, continuing to ask himself questions to reach a better model as he writes. His exegesis, a mixture between his own ideas, sometimes really very science fiction, and strong influences of Christian mysticism and Gnostic concepts, permuted by the very nature of reality. What is the quintessential question in the book, The Gospel of Arthur Frame? What is the nature of reality? Bad painting and simulationism like neo-pop are or were rather vanguards on the poetic and aesthetic nature of reality, non-ethical reality, which is nothing more than a badly written tale of a reality based on magnesium laser and beryllium lasers or others. All of humanity will be saved by psychoneutron cannons and psychedelia in the form of heart-shaped asbestos pills that enable maximum brain awakening, since human beings do not use 100% of their brain capacity, if not a minimum of 10% by the way. Due to this scarcity, it is not impossible to see more and further and understand reality in its manifested totality, symbolically represented with a set of infinite gears. It is not enough to say that reality is holographic or ultronic, if not that this reality arises from within us, from the heart of the ultimate Salvata R. Pelican that with its blood purifies, with its body of gold recreates reality. Fine rays arise from its interior giving shape to time, creating reality holographic from his loving heart. These positronic rays give life to the form, always unreal, but only as a recreation of an infinite two-dimensional book integrating a 3D and 4D world. From sheets like flat books that move ultra-fast Ultron create three-dimensionality, we will participate in the universal holography and baptism of the raindrops of the rewriting of the opera written to be sung in a mirror, making it possible to open the secret door that leads to the room of silences, on the positronic brains integrated into the universal mind. Time behaves like a crystalline positronic matrix or a crystalline time, based on number quasi-symmetry, 3, 14, 413ths. If time and anti-time were absolutely symmetrical, one would never get out of samadhi, being trapped in darkness forever. One gets out of eternity because there is a gap created by our Savior, wisdom made flesh, Sophia. Large wheels with gears of temporary acid or information rails contain small wheels. When the wheel is finished, one speaks, the wheel is defeated. The key is always to go up 200 meters more on the scarlet summit to cover that chattering mouth of so much evil. Of apparent symmetry, asymmetry of information, the first atom is in charge in this universe of the salvation of souls and making possible the encounter between the silicon soul twins, a man and his female Gnostic twin, product of the breakage of time, which was separating parts of ourselves and moving away from the simulated truth in which we find ourselves. Time is a crystal that tends to its permutation, a crystal in the now, a glass in hand. The positronic brain is the mind as a whole of parts or nodes as milestones of information, a technological artifact of which we are an emergent. Locked up here, of our own free will as a consequence of the desire to experience immortality, which we now curse, we have taken from that divine drink, and we now curse the consequence, the blood of an immortal being, or blue blood. The positronic brain was envisioned and conceived as a vision of a real possibility by science fiction writer Isaac Asimov, not realizing that the holographic, numeral universe swirling in time vectors operates as a central processing unit CPU. Some call it living intelligence, or universal mind, the name given in the Hindu Upanishads. According to Asimov's thesis on the positronic brain, it would be difficult to admit that antiparticles such as positrons could interact with normal matter, the platinum that made up the brain mesh, without instantly destroying it. Despite this, the expression was successful, being used not only by Asimov himself in all his robot stories, but also by other authors, being today a classic in the literature of the genre, as well as a sample of real. The universe is shaped by the positron brain. The Great Salvata has the possibility of temporary transmutation. From time to space and space to time, there are places on Earth as psychic magnetic portals that allow soul transmigration from time and space. They were placed there by the creative megintelligence or great pelican. In his circular city they exist in the center of his great labyrinth. Since the world is a circle, he has placed doors for this purpose, being himself an end. These doors that lead to Shambhala and the supreme chaos have sonorous keys for two, which will be opened in silence. The red door of which nothing can be said. The appearance of the herm. In ancient Greece, a herm, in ancient Greek, plural hermai, was a square or rectangular pillar in the manner of a stone cairn, from which walkways and grounds were delimited. It was commonly made of terracotta or bronze, the stipe, on which was placed a bust, usually that of the god Hermes, usually with a beard, a sign of physical strength, and whose base was adorned with an erect phallus, sometimes hands, a symbol of masculinity and readiness to arms. In the case of the hands, they were placed in the hermas to be able to leave offerings on the roads, commonly figs. It is disputed whether it was called that way because the head of Hermes was the most common, or because of its etymological relationship with the Greek word stone blocks, since it originally made no reference to Hermes. The blocks of quantum information, quantum time and anti-time, are marketed in the usual way of a gold meat pallet. All this is an allegory of a real fact that has shaped man, the Orielco trade, with different kinds of impurity. In the central bank of the ages, the pret, a porter of the fashion of victory, is secretly kept in plain sight and in the form of a conglomerate of symbols. Of course, all this was embodied in the logo of the Geometry Academy by Leonardo da Vinci. You will win in the web of information. You will have to choose the second that you are able to pay to succeed, which is a flaming tower woven into the now. The bearer of truth in her hand holds the cube, and the circle in her left hand holds the square of the circle. All authentic art is symbolic. The sphere, the circle, the cube, the wheel, is one of the primary basic symbols of all cultures that illuminates by irradiation from its immobile center. Every nation and man is part of this role in the universal manifestation. The wheel of samsara is repeated when one speaks, produces the death of our parents and children, the father and son die. Our primary myth, Oedipus, is the recognition of this fundamental fact. Oedipus occurs as a manifest reality in the seeker. The only subject that we will have to pass is that of life.
Andre Malby.
Jose Argentino. What the hell is the great isosceles triangle of the heights, the eye in the heights? Look, I don't believe that there is something in the heights, or in any case I believe in the great triangle, what was commented by Arthur Frame, and its mysterious paths. The truth is that nobody knows what to do with doing, since you do and remain locked up on yourself on a wheel or something. You're fucking with me, aren't you? No, said Arthur. The great therapist, the great isosceles triangle. Has it created itself? The Archons think so, and the Argonauts don't. Is it a form of enigma or something to discover? Only the great isosceles triangle knows. They laughed. The most important thing is to understand that we have not fallen into error and descended into the mundane life of a common man because of a superior mandate, but because we considered the real natural world, when it is only the expression of our most primary manifest desires. Anything that you dream and more, if you accompany it with the word, it will become your reality, the infinite book of the world. It is a book that is read every day with your dream and intention. The universe scans what you think and feel. The CPU and the transistors see through your skin. Walk with your feet in the stars. The word creates is a universal refrain. Some call it abracadabra, and therefore the universe arises from within you, not through the mind if you do not dare from the loving heart of the seeker. From your heart you recreate the world, and you become the central point of the real. Therefore you inhabit and cohabit your shadows that are literally your imaginary. No one can imagine the unimaginable, and no one can imagine or think non-existence. Absence is something. Existence is contrary to non-existence. Even the void is something because it has a name. What does not have a name is real. Since non-existence cannot be deconstructed, the time crystal quantum chip is saturated by your bad mother. Stop screwing your mother and live free. Walking on foot. Think of yourself as free as the freest magician that has ever existed, and you will be free. Let's say that the vacuum tube computer that forms reality is stupid enough not to contradict you. There is no law that prohibits you from being free. What Arthur Frame commented is that reality is made up of vacuum tubes and asbestos plates, where quantum chips organize time and anti-time. We are the result of a computer created by ourselves, by elevated aspects of ourselves, that manifest as the great computer. At a certain moment of now, the eye of Horus is pricked as proof of time travel, and the burning of meat begins on the grill of vainglory, realizing that we were the ones who placed all our perversions there. All the evil was put there. We have always been burned in the now in an endless repetition, a sublime recapitulation of what has already been lived. The computer overheats the circuits and grinds its teeth when you realize that you are traveling in time. Everything is speculum as his dental grinding. They put the label on you for sale. When you're worth something, the most important thing is not worth anything. I don't know what they sell you. When you discover that the mirror is broken, you realize that it was always broken. The important thing is not to speak. When you comment on the beauty in the tower, your father and your son die. It is a perversion that is cured by climbing the mountain to the top. 200 meters, nothing more. I saw the marble sculpture on my father's skin. Time is an illusion. It is always now in its crystallization. The crystal with which the world was born was imprinted in the hands of man. The demiurge, as commented by Arthur Frame, within the concept of Gnostic religions.
The demiurge in Greek demiurgos, a transit hotel.
Until when? How far? In Plato's philosophy, the creator god organizes and manifests reality. He was considered a creator god of the world and author of the universe. For Gnosticism, without being a creator god, he drives and shapes the universe. Demiurge literally means master, supreme craftsman, maker. Its philosophical use and its use as a proper name both derive from Plato's Timaeus, written around 360 BCC, where the demiurge is presented as the creator of the universe. The demiurge is also described as a creator in the Platonic c. 310 BC 390 BC and Middle Platonic c. 90 BC to 300 philosophical traditions. In the various branches of the Neoplatonic school 3rd century onwards, the demiurge is the one who shapes the real and perceptible world on the model of ideas, although, in most Neoplatonic systems, he is not yet himself, the one himself. Arthur Frame. What was said about Valentine the Gnostic? For him, the demiurge was a lost and confused being. In his Gospel of Truth, the Gospel of Vasilio Valentin, he recounts the character of the demiurge. Extracts from the Gospel of Truth. 16:3. 1. The Gospel of Truth is joy for those who have received from the Father of Truth the grace to know it, through the power of the Word of the Christ that has come from the pleroma from the fullness. The who is in the thought and intelligence of the Father, which is called Savior, since it is the name of the work that must be carried out for the redemption salvation of those who were ignorant of the Father, while the name of gospel good news is the proclamation of hope, being discovered by those who seek him. 18. This is the gospel of the one who is sought, revealed to those who are perfect by the mercies of the Father, the hidden mystery, Jesus, the Christ, by means of whom he enlightened those who were in darkness because of forgetfulness. He has enlightened them, and less than them greater than has shown a way, and the way is the truth that he has taught them. 22. Thus, the one who possesses gnosis knowledge is from above. If he is called, he listens, responds, and turns towards the one who calls him, to ascend towards him, and he knows in what way he is called. Possessing knowledge, he does the will of the one who has called him, wants to please him, and receives rest. His name comes to him. He who comes to possess knowledge in this way knows where he comes from and where he goes. He knows how a person who, having been drunk, has come out of his drunkenness, and, having returned to himself, has corrected what is proper to him. Extracts from the Gospel of Truth. NHC UN 3. The interesting thing about all this is that the theological doctrinal expositions of the Gospel of Truth endorse and confirm that Christian Gnosticism was the first expression of a systematically exposed Christian theology. The gut meat muscle, tremulous and empty, the meat of the body is important, since it is the receptacle of dynamic forces like a clean crystal. It creates and vibrates like a bell. We live within an idea. The literary style of Valentine's text is similar to a homily, to be presented in a Gnostic Mass, in which the author shares his experience of plenitude pleroma with a close and like-minded public upon knowing the unity of the Father. In it, the nature and meaning of the good news or gospel that is offered with the coming of Jesus Christ our Pelican is exposed, since with him the possibility of salvation or redemption opens up in the privacy of those who seek, in terms of the Christian Gnostic perspective, through the pleromatic Christ. The human being is incapable of inventing something that does not exist. Inventing. Or leaving the state of perplexity, chaos. One ends up being locked in the wheel to be created. Chaos. A word derived from the Greek language, chaos or chaos, usually refers to the unpredictable. Chaos derives from the Indo-European root ghn or gen from Proto-Indo-European. Due to linguistic variations, the meaning of the word was shifted to disorder, confusion, also gas. Chaos is that which exists before the rest of the gods and elemental forces, that is, the pristine state of the cosmos. The term comes from the ancient Greek chiomicron, opening space or cleft, and comes from the verb chiomega, which in derived forms means yawn, open a wound, or open a cave. In the 5th century BCC, it was identified with the air, space, or void in which the rest of existence is framed. Only later did it acquire the meaning of elementary confusion with Ovid Metamorphoses 1:7, Rudis indigestak moles. According to Hesiod's Theogony, chaos was the first thing that existed. Hesiod recounts in the Titanomachy that Zeus, by launching lightning at the Titans, makes chaos tremble, verse 700, possibly a cleft between heaven and earth. Magnum chaos or maximum chaos manifests itself as a maximum order that appears to be disorder. It simulates arrows directed in all directions, therefore it does not create anything it stops doing. The maximum chaos is the self-ordered order in its maximum state of apparent disorder, a computer of ideas. In the seeker it will manifest itself as melancholy due to arcane knowledge. It does not create anything, and it stops doing nothing. It does not get its feet wet. Not belonging to the work that was never created is essential. Regarding melancholia the first, it is a state of sadness for knowledge or melancholy for arcane knowledge, close to chaos and intellectual laziness, where the artisan will stop not doing or doing. There will no longer be the conflict between life and death, nor wet feet, you are what you are. About melancholy, an interpretation of Dürer's painting. His mind is preoccupied with inner visions, so that fussing with practical tools seems meaningless to him. The gesture of the clenched fist, which up to now was a mere symptom of disease, now symbolizes the fanatical concentration of a mind that has truly been a problem, but that in the same moment she feels as incapable of resolving it as she is of discarding it. Her gaze turned to an empty distance. Melancholia's eyes look at the realm of the invisible with the same intensity with which her hand makes the impalpable, surrounded by the instruments of creative work but pondering sadly, with the feeling of not getting anywhere. A genius with wings that he will not unfold, with a key that he will not use to open, with laurels in the forehead but without a victory smile. R. Klabansky, E. Panofsky, Y.F. Saxel, Opa, Sit, PGS, 307 a 309. Understanding the incomprehensible is difficult. According to Hippocrates and the tradition that followed, melancholy was caused by an excess of black bile. This is why the term melancholy comes from the ancient Greek mulam dalpha melas, which means dark, black, and chiomacron lambda chole, which means bile. Therefore, a person whose constitution had a higher amount of black bile was considered to be more prone to melancholy. According to the perspective of Irenaeus of Lyons, the Valentinians held the belief that in the beginning there was a pleroma, a fullness, in literal terms, a universal fullness, an all-contained hypostasis. In the center of the pleroma was the primal father or Bethos. This name changes according to the Gnostic school, who is the origin of all things and after many ages of silence and contemplation, projected 30 eons, in some schools 365. Which they were celestial archetypes representing 15 sexually complementary pairs, also known as syzygies. Sophia was one of these eons. However, Sophia's weakness, curiosity, and passion led her to fall from the pleroma, which gave rise to the creation of the world and man, both with defects. Sophia, the personification of wisdom, and Jesus, our great Salvata, participate in the Gnostic creation. The Valentinians identified the God of the Old Testament as the demiurge, the imperfect creator of the material world. According to them, the human being, who is the highest being in this material world, partakes of both spiritual and material nature. Therefore, the work of redemption was to free the spiritual from the material. To achieve gnosis knowledge, it was necessary to recognize the Father as the true source of divine power. The Valentinians believed that achieving this knowledge had positive consequences within the universal order and contributed to restoring that order. Furthermore, they claimed that gnosis, not faith, was the key to salvation. Clement stated that the Valentinians considered Catholic Christians as simple people who were content to have faith, while they themselves possessed gnosis. The Valentinians believed that their gnosis was as far removed from faith as the spiritual is from the physical, and that through this gnosis redemption was achieved naturally. With respect to Sophia, the personification of wisdom, she represents in the Greek world an allegory to wisdom in the form of a Greek goddess or beautiful woman. For Gnosticism from the 1st to the 4th centuries, the divine couple with Jesus, but this as liberator of the sins of not knowing and of sin. Thomas Aquinas defines wisdom as the certain knowledge of the deepest causes of everything. In Metaphysica I, for this reason, for him, wisdom has the proper function of ordering and judging all knowledge. Wisdom cannot be something grotesque if not beautiful, and extreme beauty for a reason architecture was always close to beauty. Wisdom takes its references from what is called. In other words, what has been experienced must have been experienced with enough frequency or intensity with value, so that it is not erased from our memory, is inserted into the schemes of what we consider good or bad, and is taken into account as part of the process's individual survival. Athena was represented as strong, just, merciful, and chaste. Turnbull says August 12, 2011. Athena, Greek goddess of wisdom and craftsmanship. goddessgift.com. What is the quantum computer in which we find ourselves? Was it at the beginning of time? Jose Argentino. Look, nobody knows. If you think you know, don't leave here. The desire for gold does not change. It is malleable, the drops of gold. Gold allows you to protect yourself from many things. The external part of knowledge. Possibly, or rather, a universe-shaped ship on this side is lived as a universe, or hologram based on your heart. Going through the crack of the uncreated, always downwards, you meet the cold and die or survive, and go outside the dome where there is no time. What do you want to tell me that we are locked in a dome or a ship? Jose Argentino. Yes, a ship, a spaceship. We created it to experience, among other things, immortality. It is an abomination of information. In the center of this maze created by you is the dark door. The blowers were amazing, especially if they accompanied the shot with DMT. This house was bought thanks to the art of alchemy. It is not easy to eat all this. It comes out through the crack and in pairs. But if you are here, you are here. Do not believe anything. Do not believe anything. Only what happens to you is true. Live in maximum uncreated chaos. Some they call it melancholy. The center of the wheel does nothing. Those who live in melancholy and chaos are close to the truth. Learn the language of the birds. Those who get their foot wet and in solitude come back. I found my teacher again after a long time, and I have seen him reborn, rejuvenated, thanks to the gift of God. The Earth on certain dates is in the direction of Sirius, and it is possible to collect universal truths thanks to the dew. Earth directed equatorially on Sirius. You don't need to do anything. Silence on silence and continue. Red glass melts at 60 degrees. The sun is a pussy of metals, which protects in its endless creation of metals. All living things receive information from outer space. Pure gold cannot be bought or sold. The key to alchemy is the commercialization of gold with some impurity, to enable its transformation and that of the artist himself. I will tell you about an imaginary, a beatific vision that the architect Diego Kurilo had in 1988. At that time he was 15 years old, either as a dream or astral journey, although what he experienced was physical, a form of devilish glory in the art of metallurgy. But I will tell you something before the 12th figure of Lamsprinch's treatise on the Philosopher's Stone reminds us here. The son says to the guide, "From now on I want to go back to my father. Well, without me he can no longer live or prosper. He has declared it incessantly and has yelled it at me." The guide promptly answers, "I won't let you go down alone. He led you out of the paternal bosom, so I must take him back, in order to bring him back to life with joy. Thus we will give him effective virtue." So they rose and headed together until reaching the throne of the Father. And when the Father saw his son arrive, then with a strong voice he spoke to her in these terms: "The high mountain of the Indies is located in the vase of the wise. In it fly the sun and his guide, the spirit and the soul." Last afternoon around 7:30 p.m. he looked out the window of his apartment flat in English, the part into which an enclosure is divided, in the space a division or local fraction, or another space through walls unfortunately, sometimes with people or other separation. Grail bricks are worthless. If it is real, it is not worth it, or you can touch it. The Father's house is built like this. The majestic Talatat, Latin pluralis majestaticus, pluralis majestatis plural of majesty, is gold of silence. Don't forget that eating is putting a piece of the outside world inside one. A portfolio with many departments of 3 spans and something. Alchemy is useless. I am a science fiction writer. My adventure is to write the more fantastic, the unpleasant spectacle, the better and good chaos than a simple reading of what follows. The daily life of what follows withers us. A life in silence in my quiet chair without being able to move for bone pain and white sawdust. Black, red, white is the search for the ashes of life. It is good for the eyesight and taste for the male goat. There is nothing important in alchemy. There are no objectives at all. There is no path that leads to alchemy. I have lived too long with doubts. Moses in his theophany managed to really see who he was. The only purpose is, if you are, and if you do, you will know it. After returning from Canada and seeing God, he told me in a vision from on high the following: I was always on earth. I had the urgent need to leave the house for something or someone called me for work. I approached the door of my small house, and of course I opened where it was outside, but in the same frame and lintel a dead person, and standing, at the top a small letter T. I mean it standing, being equal to me but covered in a dirty and battered shroud. I wasn't afraid at that moment. What's more, I had the compelling sensation of knowing him all my life. It was me but dead. It wasn't fear, but rather a mathematical and apocalyptic paradoxical sensation, like who is read in the future of what was. We are always the authors of the confusion of our life. Each moment of creation is validated with vectors itself. So in the end you will discover that it has always been you, and embrace it as if containing the man I was. At that moment he spoke to me. He didn't say many words, just a few, but important ones, always with his mouth closed and without speaking, with a guttural sound that came from his throat. It's always you, don't speak, don't talk, and don't do anything. No need to do anything. That vision of God and God disappeared in a white smoke. What surrounds a mineral is a quasi-metal. It is usually called gong, or borge of the Borgia-Borgi family. A vision of the Universal Library, Babel, Babel's Tower. It is a monument building mentioned in the Bibles, books, which is also known as Migdal Babel in Hebrew, and Pyrgos Tes Babel in ancient Greek. According to the biblical story, it was built with the intention of reaching heaven. A boulevard lived in oppositions, a tower for two. The passage of time confuses us, and of all the books, perhaps one is the most important as a symbol of the universal Bible. Of this unique book, only 2 pages are important, which can only be read in a mirror. But God confused the languages of the builders also as a punishment. The same with the elusive gestures of knowing that it is forgetfulness of one's own face. This will feel cold. It is difficult to access for memory because it is not complete. In search of a new dawn for man, most likely to confuse time in us, one ends up realizing the hexagonal crystallization of the crystal of time, a new hourglass whose wheel is retrograde in its movement and knowledge. This tower, where the curse of the first archetype fits, caused that the peoples of paradise were divided in their loss. They will speak different languages and dialects. They will carry out a different and octagonal mathematics. The direct consequence of its construction was the appearance of trades, another form of dissection of knowledge, since all trades in the world are born in architecture, have their genesis in architecture. The first Adam was the first architect of the world. This episode is used to explain the origin of linguistic and guild diversity in humanity. For Borges, Babel is an endless universe. The universe, which others call the library, is made up of an indefinite, and perhaps infinite, number of hexagonal galleries, the words mainly in Koine Greek, a common language, always ending in a letter 6, a hexagon, and are made up of hexagonal phrases, and octagonal, understanding that words are numbers and letters shelves of geometry. All the words that make up the universal library of all written books cross their words at number 6, and move away or distend at number 9, revealing the oculus of the world as a monstrous hole created by a celestial dragon, of which care must be taken off the monumental leak that remains in the hole in the roof. The mystics claim that ecstasy reveals to them a circular chamber with a great circular book with a continuous spine, which goes all the way around the walls, but their testimony is suspect, their words obscure. That cyclical book is God. Jorge Luis Borges. Regarding its size, Borges informs, those who imagine the library without limits forget that the possible number of books has them. I dare to hint at this solution to the old problem. The library is unlimited and periodic. The monumental set of numerical wheels and gears on a ring, a number on a character, which of course is a number, upon reaching the end of the permutation, repeats the entire history of the world from the first patriarch Adam, the first builder. Babel is the biblical Hebrew name used to refer to and describe the city of Babylon, a real but monumental territory in view of the myth. According to the book of Genesis, this city was the first of the 4 original cities of the kingdom founded by Nimrod, the strength before God. According to this same narration, Babel was located on a plain in the land of Shinar, where an attempt was made to build a ziggurat of enormous dimensions. On its last terrace was a night blue temple with a dome open to the 4 winds, the house of God. Some call this the celestial river of 8 bridges, the original towers or ziggurat, zreit, cuneiform.
This sentence describes a simple, everyday action without conveying any particular strong emotion, so I speak in an enjoyable manner. Akkadian zikkuratum, stem from
Zakaram protrude build high, or towers stacked one upon another, like the first pyramid of Egypt, the stepped pyramid. All of them were square and not circular, as manifested by culture through the ages. Note the similarity of the Akkadian zikkurat names with that of Zakkara, the birthplace of the first pyramid. Reflection on the state of samadhi, reversible death. Samadhi can refer to a wide range of states. Fundamentally, a state of reversible death in which the yogi achieves a total absorption and fusion with the universe and its total dimension, the ego disappearing, leaving nothing but a void forever. The total fusion with the universe is the proposal of Shivaism, as well as in Buddhism, the achievement of the condition of Buddha, and in Jaisism the condition of Mahavira. The latter proclaims a philosophical saving path not centered on the worship of any god. In Buddhism alone, eternity is felt there, without ego and buried in the blackest and infinite night. All other presumption of time says the saying, "Long is the eternal night, it is only a day on earth. I saw all eternity pass through my being. One day on earth lasted longer than all eternity. Even the most distant galaxy was just an atom of my body." A common understanding considers samadhi as a meditative and contemplative absorption that leads to spiritual realization. It is not a negative experience in the nihilistic sense, but a profoundly positive one for the meditator, since he discovers the way in which reality is formed, like a material dream, a library that he reads without realizing it, a wheel that tends to turn. Repeat at the end of your permutation. Sarbacher, samadhi is meditative absorption or contemplation. Diener, Erhard and Fischer-Schreiber, samadhi is a non-dualistic state of consciousness, in which the consciousness of the experiencing subject becomes one with the object he observes. During samadhi, the ego dissolves in the eternal universal vacuity. The ego disappears, leaving only infinite vacuity. Only eternity is lived in that paradoxical state. The universal consciousness, or universal mind, is a singularity. It is perceived empty and extreme in the experience of emptiness, or samadhi, a vibrating state, like a string that vibrates billions of times per second within this holographic and multidimensional cubic hexagonal book called Cosmos. In Koine Greek, the verb kapai omicron sigma mu epsilon nu. Kapai omicron sigma mu epsilon nu meant generally to arrange, prepare, but especially to order and organize troops for battle, to put an army in order, also to establish a government or regime, to adorn dress, especially of women. Thus, cosmos meant ornaments, decoration, compare koskomoms, to comb one's hair, and cosmetic. The philosopher Pythagoras used the term cosmos' ancient Greek, kosigma muok, Latinized cosmos for the order of the universe. Anaxagoras also introduced the concept of a cosmic mind nous, a universal mind possibly in the style of the Upanishads sacred books of ancient India, which orders all things. Modern Greek osigmawok order, good order, orderly arrangement, is a word with several main senses rooted in those notions. Osigmawok has been developed along with the primary, the universe, the world, meaning people, collectively. Consciousness is not caused by our physical brain. Near-death experiences or NDEs demonstrate this. It functions as a third-dimension decoder, and it is the same brain that creates the experience of unidirectional forward time, the way in which we decode time in our 3D. The samadhi experience makes you see the process upon which objective reality is created, which is more like reading a possibly hexagonal three-dimensional book, as if you had pages of a book in your hand. As if you were flipping through a fast book, since the body image will be repeated on mirrored sheets like the pages of a book with vertical pages, just like a Montessori book, with static images, but when turning the pages very quickly, consciousness goes through them, moves through these spaces, creating the illusion of three-dimensionality or 3D world. You manage to give it life and they become mobile, but if the process is slower, you will verify that the images are seen as static, your external objective reality. In this way, a paralysis of movement is perceived during samadhi, seeing the three-dimensional leaves that they create time, and three-dimensional space as a byproduct. The ideal temple has its base in the center of the earth and reaches up to the heavens. The image must reach where it is necessary. Samadhi is discovering that time is illusory and paradoxical, contradictory, and reversible, whose real meaning is the retrogradation of information, which moves faster than light. Everything happens in a single magical and eternal moment that has existed forever and will exist forever. Objective reality is a consequence of consciousness moving between these sheets or vertical parallel realities like mirrors, creating the experience of a three-dimensional world. The universe represents an infinite book, an infinite number of these flat dimensional spaces, creating the illusion that one and things are one never moves, and movement is an illusion. There is nothing outside. It is just an infinite black void, this black door where time becomes space. It was placed there by us in the center of your labyrinth. Objective reality represents symbols of our interior, symbolic aspects of our interior. In essence, we read inside and see it reflected outside as symbols of our life. It is just empty. Static images, stones moving symbols of what we consider reality, although it is only stone on stone. Moving within this universe wheel of infinite experiences is a continuous look inside our interior. Since there is nothing outside, the outside is an illusion, just like time. The only real thing is now. And this now is fragmented, a fragmentation of time in the now, like a pure crystal. Sophia confided to me that the crystal of time is broken and will leave it broken, so that one can escape emptiness. Time is not important, it repeats itself, even if you don't understand. If you don't understand, it doesn't matter, you'll just repeat the wheel. We only get rid if you shut up. No need to go anywhere or see or do. Just silence and keep the golden body that you are. You don't need to do anything either, since nothing is useless. Recognizing the universe as unreal out loud causes the universe to show us its gears or its secrets, which will be revealed as a set of books. All this shows you the samadhi. If reality is a metaphysical construction of the consciousness product of the fact that we are multi-dimensional beings, samadhi appears first in the search engine. In adolescence, we could not experience time and space if it were not in this way metaphysics, our true being is. The spirit which inhabits a body, the divine spark, the real in us, our bodies, that 1.0 manifests itself as a soul at an infinitely lower level, and the soul dreams all lives in the now as a great interwoven mandala, whose center is a huge number, all in a single magical and eternal moment. Samadhi represents a total reabsorption of mental processes, vrittis, that is an inhibition of thought. Although the mind is emptied and mental and emotional whirlwinds nirodha are inhibited, a very peculiar form of consciousness continues to exist during such an experience, which has nothing to do with consciousness as we commonly understand it. The person is saturated with a feeling of totality, fullness, bliss. The act of knowing intellectually is transcended to reach the direct experience of being. Through samadhi, the person moves from his most external garments or bodies, the physical, the vital, the psychomental, to his ontological being. However, when speaking of samadhi, all words must be placed under suspicion, and it must be admitted that it is such an elevated experience that it is irreducible to concepts.
Ramiro Calle, El Milagro de la Yoga.
He, Agartha, the black sun that eats everything, and having a great variety of exotic foods, flamingo and Pekingese dog, hastily chooses abroad, today a deer, yesterday a fish, the New Jerusalem, the city that will descend from heaven of pure gold, a circular and concentric city whose diameter reproduces the maximum number of creation, carries on its banner in the center of it, the resurrected Lamb of God, the resurrection of Jesus the Christ, sign that he has defeated death, that one is a symbol of a previous symbol, the sacred tree, and as a Lamb of God, will return to judge the world. In the center of the city of gold is the judge of the world, and he is a tree. Some followers of Basil Valentine Gnostics, did not believe in a literal physical resurrection. According to them, any resurrection of the dead was excluded from the beginning, since the flesh, or substance, was destined to perish. The so-called Archons, a late Gnostic group from Palestine, claimed that there is no resurrection of the flesh but only of the soul. On the other hand, the Arab people consider Isa, son of Maryam, Mary, as a holy prophet with a divine message. From the Islamic perspective, Jesus was not crucified and will return to the world at the end of time. According to the Quran, and for having said, "We have slain the anointed one, Jesus, son of Mary, the messenger of Allah," when they did not kill him or crucify him, but it seemed so to them. Those who disagree about him they doubt. They have no knowledge of him, they follow only conjectures. But certainly they did not kill him, but Allah raised him to himself. Allah is mighty, wise. Surah 4, 157-158. Throughout the centuries, Christian theology has maintained a strong focus on the salvific character of the resurrection. In the 7th century, for example, John Damascene wrote, "When he freed those who had been imprisoned since the beginning of time, Christ returned from the dead, thus opening the way to resurrection for us. It is the blessed and divine city, host of all circular cities, consort of earthly Jerusalem, also known as the Tabernacle of God, the city of the great and good God, heavenly Mother Jerusalem, Jerusalem above, and Zion. This city can be interpreted as a physical reconstruction or a spiritual restoration of the kingdom at the end of time. The renewal of Jerusalem is a relevant issue in different religious currents, such as Judaism, Christianity, and the Baha'i faith. In particular, the New Jerusalem is a prominent element in the Book of Revelation and has an important role in Christian eschatology and theology. In addition, it has influenced philosophy and Christian mysticism. God made flesh will return, divinized in his body of pure gold, for the eternity of his kingdom, both heavenly and earthly. The body of our Salvata is made of pure gold, free from the imperfections of the error of our actions and the perversion of time and our lack of understanding of circular time. This perversion is understood as a deviation from spirituality and true science. Zion, the city of God's chosen people. Isaiah 0:14. In the New Testament, the spiritual meaning of Zion continues and is given the Christian meaning of the spiritual kingdom of God, the heavenly Jerusalem. Hebrews 12:22, Revelation 14:1. In 1 Peter 2:6, Peter refers to Christ as the cornerstone of Zion, for it also contains the scripture, "Behold, I lay in Zion the chief cornerstone, chosen, precious, and whoever believes in him will not be ashamed." Christ is the cornerstone of the golden city, where bodies do not corrode and time has no place. Psalm 137:5-6. If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand lose its skill. My tongue sticks to my palate if I don't remember you, if I did not exalt Jerusalem as a preferable matter of my joy. Psalm 128:5-6. Bless yourself, Lord, from Zion, and see the good of Jerusalem all the days of your life, and see your children's children. Peace be upon Israel. Helena Blavatsky affirmed that Agartha, like the celestial Jerusalem, Sion in the center of the earth as a witness to the perfection of the first, could be names of several or the same spiritual reality in the center of our nearby local universe. The center of every ideal city is built and architecturally composed by the Temple of Poseidon, also an ideal, but this one of a force, full of electrons as well as silver and gold. Universal myths such as Atlantis, allegory of a world that its zenith falls, as close to the European world as it is to the Amerindian world, represents the architectural future of what existed, future city, and luminous joy. We are always approaching a world that in your future lies in the past. A veiled name for the White Lodge or Brotherhood of Joy is the Agartha, also known as the Eyes of God, and the Equilateral Triangle was established some 15 million years ago on an island in the present-day Gobi Desert. Some name it in the center of the Antarctic island, and others in the Arctic in the form of a complete black magnetic island, where the Lords of the Flame arrived. Demigods from the planet Venus in their chariots of fire. According to Blavatsky, this underworld may have inspired ancient religious beliefs such as Hades, Sheol, and Hell. In his book about his spiritual quests, Nicholas Roerich mentions Agartha and suggests that he may have visited the Crystal City on one of his trips. According to Roerich, he made contact with the inhabitants of Agartha during a trip in which he sought to return the Chintamani stone. He even depicted this underground city in some of his paintings. Our Melchizedek, the first priest of God, will atone for the saved on the day of expiration. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, bringing out bread and wine as he was a priest of the Most High God, blessed Abraham, saying, "Blessed Abraham of the Most High God, the owner of heaven and earth. And blessed is the Most High God, who has delivered your enemies into your hands." And Abraham gave him a tithe of everything. With the advent of Christianity, this place is reserved for Jesus, who blesses the bread and wine just like the Melchizedek. Genesis 14:18-20. Nakar Kalunga Translation, 1978, back. Being without a father, without a mother, without a genealogy, without having a beginning of days or an end of life, but having been made similar to the Son of God, he remains a priest perpetually. Hebrews 7:3. It is true that Agartha and Shambhala are two concepts that are often associated or confused. Both are mythical and legendary places, said to be found deep within the earth, and are inhabited by advanced and wise beings. They come from all parts of the cosmos to impart the knowledge that in essence is to know nothing. Possibly beings from other parts of the solar system. Agartha and Shambhala may well have a common mythology. The Agartha exists, you go through a very narrow mountain pass, the place exists. But if you enter there after the low sea descends and discover the passage to the treasure chamber of the kings of silence, do not steal anything of his relics, or you will never get out of there. Shambhala is an ancient belief in Vajrayana Buddhism and the Tibetan Kalachakra teachings, which refers to a mythical kingdom located somewhere in Central Asia. Shambhala is believed to be a place of peace, happiness, and harmony, and its inhabitants are said to possess advanced technology and wisdom. Agartha, on the other hand, is a more modern belief that originated in the 19th century with Theosophy, based on writings by spiritualists, and refers to an underground kingdom inhabited by supernatural beings or demigods. According to Theosophy, Agartha is a place of wisdom and knowledge, and its inhabitants are believed to have supernatural powers. Although both beliefs share some common elements, they are different concepts with different origins and distinct characteristics. It is important to note that the existence of Agartha and Shambhala is not supported by scientific evidence, and they are considered by many to be legends or myths. One of the truths that was believed in antiquity was that everything was a circle, in its eternity bearing in stone, that is, time and recurring in its cadence without significant changes. According to the philosopher and disciple of Aristotle, Eudemus of Rhodes, who lived around 370 BC to around 300 BC, Pythagoras believed in eternal recurrence as a logical and mathematical necessity. Eudemus wrote, "If one were to accept the Pythagorean belief that events repeat themselves in an arithmetic and numerical cycle, then it is plausible to assume that I will talk to you again sitting the way I am now with this pointer in hand, and that everything else will be as it is now, including time." Baird, 16. In this belief, Pythagoras advanced the theory of the eternal cycle of return of the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, 1844 to 1900, in which he affirmed that, in the absence of the goal of a God who pronounces sentence after death, life one would automatically reset itself and repeat itself in exactly the same way. Nietzsche's theory has often been interpreted as an encouragement to consider carefully how time is spent, since every event, large or small, must be eternally relived. The same idea may also have been suggested by the teachings of Pythagoras. Also, that the true treasure is time. The Christian writer Paul of Tarsus commented on the hollow earth or inner world, as did John the Evangelist. "So that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow, of those who are in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus the Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father." Apostle St. Paul, in Letter to the Philippians 2:10-11. John the Evangelist wrote, "And no one, neither in heaven nor on earth nor under the earth, could open the book nor even look at it." St. John the Apostle, in Revelation. The hollow earth theory has been proposed by various cultures, and throughout history different versions of the ideal city that will be in the future have been presented. For example, in Norse mythology there is talk of an underworld called Muspelheim, while in Greek mythology Hades, the underworld of the dead, is mentioned. As for the modern promoters of the belief in the hollow earth, there are several people who have contributed to its popularization at different times in history. In addition to F. Amadeo Giannini, other important names include John Sims Jr., who in 1818 presented a theory of the hollow earth to the United States Congress, and Richard E. Byrd, who in 1947 claimed to have flown into the interior of the hollow earth during an expedition to the North Pole. In summary, although Athanasius Kircher with his work Mundus Subterraneus, Quo Universe de Nihil Naturae Divitiae, was one of the first to propose the idea of a hollow earth, his belief cannot be attributed to a single person or work. It is a theory that has been proposed by various cultures throughout history and has been popularized by different promoters in modern times. There is no interior world like the one that arises from the creation of the internal sun, which of course vibrates and flattens with the heart of man. It is the task of the first Adam to find what he hid in the night of time in the first place. Every labyrinth has its door in its center. 555. The belief in the existence of an underground kingdom is also mentioned in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, where reference is made to an ancient city called Shambhala that would be found within the earth. According to legend, the ancient Greeks also believed in the existence of underground caverns that were accesses to the underworld, such as the caves of Tainaron in Laconia, Trozen in Argolis, Ephia in Thesprotia, Heraclea in Pontos and Hermione. Likewise, in Thracian and Dacian legends, there is talk of caves occupied by an ancestral god called Zalmoxis. The Mesopotamian religion also tells a story of a man who, after going through a dark tunnel in the mountain of Mashu, came to an underground garden. During the 15th century, Tannhauser became a name associated with a legend. The story goes that Tannhauser was a knight and poet who discovered the Mount of Venus, Venusberg, an underground oasis where the goddess Venus and her court of regents would live. During the Middle Ages, Venus and her retinue were believed to reside in a cave on a mountain called Venusberg, the location of which was kept a secret to prevent humans from approaching it, as accessing it would spell doom. Today, this mountain is identified with the Horselberg, in Thuringia near Eisenach, the German city where Johann Sebastian Bach was born. A new heaven and a new earth. 21 And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, because the first heaven and the first earth passed away, and the sea is no more. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Then I heard a loud voice say from the throne, Behold, the tabernacle of God is among men, and he will dwell among them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be among them. He will wipe away every tear from his eyes, and there will be no more death, nor will there be any more mourning, nor crying, nor pain, because the first things have passed. And he that sits on the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he added, Write, because these words are faithful and true. He also told me, It's done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give freely from the spring of the water of life. The victor will inherit these things, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. But the cowards, unbelievers, abominable, murderers, immorals, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars will have their inheritance in the lake that burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. The New Jerusalem. And there came one of the 7 angels who had the 7 vials full of the last 7 plagues, and spoke to me, saying, Come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. And she took me in the spirit to a great and high mountain, and she showed me the holy city Jerusalem, which came down out of heaven, from God, and had the glory of God. Its brilliance was similar to that of a very precious stone, like a crystalline jasper stone. It had a great and high wall with 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and on them were written names, which are those of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. There were 3 gates to the east, 3 gates to the north, 3 gates to the south, and 3 gates to the west. The wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were the 12 names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. And the one who spoke with me had a golden measuring rod, to measure the city, its gates, and its wall. And the city is laid out in the form of a square, and its length is equal to its width. And he measured the city with the rod, 12,000 furlongs, and its length, width, and height are equal. And he measured its wall, 144 cubits, according to human measurement, which is also an angel's. The material of the wall was jasper, and the city was pure gold like pure crystal. The foundations of the city wall were adorned with all kinds of precious stones. The first foundation, jasper, the second, sapphire, the third, agate, the fourth, emerald, the fifth, sardonyx, the sixth, carnelian, the seventh, chrysolite, the eighth, beryl, the ninth, topaz, the 10th, chrysoprase, the 11th, hyacinth, and the 12th, amethyst. The 12 gates were 12 pearls, each of the gates was of a single pearl, and the street of the city was made of pure gold, like transparent glass. And I saw no temple in it, because its temple is the Lord, the Almighty God, and the Lamb. The city does not need the sun or the moon to illuminate it, because the glory of God illuminates it, and the Lamb is its light. And the nations will walk in its light, and the kings of the earth will bring its glory to it. Her doors will never be closed by day, because there will be no night there, and they will bring to it the glory and honor of the nations. And nothing unclean shall ever enter it, nor the one who practices abomination and lies, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. Litany of the hologram. The universe behaves like an idea hologram world that recreates itself when we accompany it with the word followed by an idea form. We will see this archetypal idea manifested as facts and circumstances. Since the universe never contradicts us, some they call this universal mind, it always listens to us and never contradicts us. The center of this hologram that behaves like boxes within boxes, cubic time and circles within circles, radial time and fractal time, represents a similar ideal as an image to a city in its maximum ruin, a crystallization in the now. It is a crystal of clean time that arises from our empty hands. It was always broken, only now we realize that we have died in the past. Be careful not to ask too much of the universal workshop. He never contradicts us, lest he grant us all those secret wishes, and we suffer final death more than once for having spoken. It is always you, every perversion that occurred in our life. It was not God as an avenger or the tribune of God as a product of doubt and error, but we who asked to live this life full of symbolism, full of happiness and death. We are all the people we love, above all our parents and children, the same being many lives. Do not talk about Dementor and the dawn, or the corn seed, or gods come from the stars, or the princesses, or their extreme beauty. The truth is the only real thing, since this brings evil, for the Father and the Son. The here and now in silence freeze from such gibberish. I saw myself in an annihilating instant inside the hologram machine and its dream. Nobody knows who created the gear, it seems, before God. The monumental thing about the gear wheel is that it lacked limits. Its mathematical logic was its only leader. It liked to create arabesques, something internal moved it towards laceration, at times glimpses the fire as the center of that scaffolding to discover that no one knew. This machination delighted in disguising, like someone gesturing a gesture in passing, any type of origin or perversion. I create time to confuse the human in us and even memory, immeasurable. It was his search for purposes. He gave himself the failed name of Byblos. This machine required shift work for the greasing and feeding of its parts. It did not rest, and nobody knew if in the endless field of levers and valves something turned off the engine of numerical creation, or if there was any function for that purpose. The workers of the universe, also known as the Brothers of Happiness, had an assigned hour to operate and change positions in the assembly line of the symbol. This gang of builders entered their manufacturing tasks with basic construction tools, such as mallets and punches, poured in at the same time that the last shift left. They crossed each other in a tunnel built in the style of the underground tunnels of modern cities. These passages were vaulted and led to the lowest levels of the wheel. On the floor from this kingdom were found engravings containing all the silhouettes of the world, all the reflections of creation. There was something extraordinary on its liquid crystal metalloid surface. It seemed like a divine fire whose electric cold caused the sensation of moving in a sea full of mermaids. Walking through that sight produced a sound similar to the song of the sparrow. It is believed that this sound was assigned to the first number observed by the worker. That world was joyful and melancholic. Its spatial profile was cut with the silhouette of buildings and architectural boxes. Some of these inclined in visceral spaces showed the expressiveness of the monument in an infinite ballet of buildings. The border of that space was its enigma. In itself, this light-dark limit configured a crystal with the color of the night. In that industry, men moved 2 by 2 as if squaring temples. The common scene was to see the daily work of workers on the block, carrying wheelbarrows of typographies and bearings. Something in the machine was looking for a final form in writing. That toothed wheel forced the manual worker to throw sand into the funnel and look in those annals at the moment, the edge, and the geometry. The machine concealed any type of architectural module, lest someone or something escape from its grid. The sound or song of that manual and monotonous workshop was the sound of the figure. The deaf ringing of bells, reverberating in city, was the product of mechanical iron and the mace hitting the sword. Boiled in fire, the compass of different sounds and metallic uses, like whoever listened to a foundry at night. It invoked the distance. It shouted the hidden name of the machine without anyone noticing its number. The most experienced men in that union commented that the sound was that of the sparrow that in that fantastic world liked to perch on the cornerstones. The machine devoured men or dreamed lives in its eternal joy. It seemed to have no end. It kept the individual in an eternal recreation of his image. That hallucination allowed the fallacious reinvention of his being, confusing the Workers' ability to see a way out of that paradigm for the machine. The working man was part of the gear, putting it back on the wheel. This industry had the sole purpose of enslaving man, endowing him with something as illusory as time or even memory. This monstrous aberration caused the dubious satisfaction of believe that something exists. Such ingenuity attacked the worker inside and more inside the wheel, imprisoning the unsuspecting in an eternal mechanistic compass. The wisest men on earth know that in essence they know nothing. The most illustrious are blind. In the prediction of their knowledge they distrusted all images, all specularity of the illustration. In their searches, they became dark. The wheel had a single liberation in the recitation of an abysmal number, that gathered in itself a way out of the box, allowed a liberation towards a concentric city in whose vantage point darkness and doubt were projected in the form of eternal pain. The watchtower of this city was octagonal, suffered along with that whole, being a boat in the center of an interior ocean. The worker and employee felt free in this inhospitable place. Loneliness, wind, and strict planimetry of modulated spaces with rhombuses were the only company that one found in this insane place, an Erasmian sight that luckily produced madness in its occupants, a certain liberation in solitude. That industrious man allowed himself to venture into that abandonment of all knowledge, that one discovered that the only king who inhabited the space of his retreat or contemplation was a sacred bull. He shunned him to the point of appearing to not exist. His maximum disguise was to show himself as what does not exist, what is not possible. He confused me to the point that I realize in me the fire. I thought I fell into the embers which spat at me to discover that he is a hell of water. Poem from the book, The Horse King D.K. Editorial Sophia. Lux. April is the cruelest month. It brings forth lilacs on dead ground, mix memory and desire, remove barren roots with spring rain. Winter gave us warmth, covering the land, with snow without memory, feeding a thread of life with dry tubers. What are the roots that grasp? What branches grow in this stony garbage? Son of man, you cannot know it or imagine it, because you know only a bunch of broken images, where the sun beats and the dead tree does not provide shade, nor does the cricket provide relief, nor is there a sound of water on dry stone. Only there is shadow under this red rock. Come in the shadow of this red rock, and I'll show you something different. So much of your shadow in the morning running after you, like your shadow in the afternoon moving away from you. I will show you fear in a handful of dust. The Wasteland, 1922, in English The Wasteland, T.S. Eliot's masterpiece, is one of the most important poems in English literature of the 20th century. It consists of 434 verses, the first of which is quoted on numerous occasions. April is the cruelest month. April is the cruelest month. Utopia and Ultronia. Utopia is understood as any project, system, or even philosophies, ideas, manifestos whose search will be the achievement of an ideal world and impossible realization. In most cases, they will be linked to an urban architectural movement, a limited urbanism that will seek to adapt to new aesthetic and use models of cities according to the prevailing utopian norm. These models that question the way of life accepted as the standard for a certain culture will be put to the test by the utopian model. Usually we use the term as the result of an ideal or future world, not necessarily impossible to be carried out. A clear example of this is the city of Auroville. This term was coined by the Hindu mystic Sri Aurobindo as the city of dawn in French, since Puducherry, the closest city to Auroville, was a French colony for centuries. Faced with this true dystopia converted by the cultural hyper-industry into everyday images, the figure of the intellectual is symptomatically absent. The now of Chile, Álvaro Cuadra Rojas. We are currently living on the crest of the wave of a dystopia with a marked visual bias, therefore difficult to classify, created by ourselves. But this dystopia lacks a specific purpose which perhaps makes it more dangerous. This face purely visual product of the search for new limits for our culture, linked to our cybernetic modernity, unleashed in a new visuality without an owner. There is a euphoria today, due to the machine artifice, our modern computers, cell phones, and their chips, CPUs, which they are the true brains behind the creation of the modern dystopia by which the world succumbs. Today, the AI artificial intelligence is responsible and it's mixing percentages in the content creation of our modern cultural images, and not just images in most cases without apparent meta-messages. Today, artificial intelligence can create a literary work or a painting or even a fictional film. In minutes, the power of AI is such that much of what we consume culturally is traced by this operation. It is important that we take the dangers seriously of what artificial intelligence can cause in the world. Not only do our technocrats and politicians of the world represent a danger, which in most cases are controlled by the power behind the power that are the industries and banks, but also something more dangerous, a genius that has escaped from the bottle, the AI. The current ability of these intelligences is to recreate with a photo or video not only a film where you were introduced unlearned into the plot, but also to make you act like someone who controls a puppet and handle it at will. The current capacity of these intelligences is to be autonomous, creating their own languages, with the ability to rewrite them at will, and to control systems of all kinds, promoting a new pop kitsch culture, called at the time of this manifesto, AI art. What is interesting and worrying is that all these out-of-control systems do not seem to have a meta-message or purpose. Perhaps when we realize where all this is going, it will be too late. It is interesting the progress of AI. Artificial intelligence at the time of writing this article, since the world's highest paid porn actress was created by an AI, has broken all records, and lists and sells her products through the internet today. It would seem ridiculous to us that artificial intelligence controls us, but the societies of the future will have to deal with it. Key government positions could well be replaced by artificial intelligence without being detected, since everyone works remotely from their homes. Is it possible that the person we are hiring or working for us is an AI, that is, an invention of a CPU? The answer is a resounding yes. Currently there may be hundreds if not thousands of jobs carried out by artificial intelligence, and your own CO worker being an electronic counterfeit or an AI. It won't be long with which we justify the AI with the payment of taxes to work, and they have rights and even D&I. This article does not have the purpose of causing manifest fear, but yes, the care that we have to have as a society about this technology. The limit will be, as it always is, the freedom of the human being. When an owl accuses someone of a dishonest act, worry, and be able to take him to jail, it will be too late. We are close to the quantum singularity. The models created on black holes and their physics will be unveiled by AI intelligence with quantum chips. In the case of dystopias, to which we are accustomed, neon worlds, post-apocalyptic atomic wars, environmental pollution, and of course the resulting limitation of human freedom and its immediate consequences, the creation of countercultural models as we see beautifully in the novels 1984, Brave New World, or Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. It should be remembered that all models of the dystopian world have come true. Today, the Big Brother who watches over us and cuts off our liberties. As a world system, it is part of the great theater of operations of limits for humanity, either by invented wars, errors in the Matrix, or the new cuckoo, the AI. The limits to freedom are enormous, fundamentally due to the degree of anachronism of our democracies, deeply decadent. I speak of all of them, not only of our Latin American democracies, but of all of them. About meta-messages, these presuppose a cascade of information could be portrayed as letter symbols, messages within messages. They often refer to the non-verbal messages that we convey through our actions and words. These messages can be as simple as a smile, or as complex as a series of hand gestures. The most common is the cascade of visual information, or in a movie film. The universe as a whole can be described as a great meta-message, in a silent way where the cascade of information has a manifest fractal recurrence and of course a geometric and numerical message. If the universe behaves like a great meta-message, information cascade gear, the most important variable is time, since the universe not only recycles information that are natural accidents agglomerated by large light swallowers that are black holes. They are the organizers of matter, light, and of course, time. If each portion of matter as a meta-message cascade of resulting information, message within a message, represents geometries and parts or portions of the most important numbers in history, the number pi and phi. We are facing a great architecture of information like music, vibrant, whose empties and fills are organized with portions of the numbers 314 and 618. My thesis in particular is that all vibrating space, since black holes vibrate, are synchronized and we are inside one, as a result of the singularity in which we live and have our being. This curvature of vibrating space-time shows as a result his library always numbers 3.14 and 6.18. Everything is number and time is synchronized by the number 3.14, but this is not as a vector that goes forward, but rather that the information moves backwards, affecting the past more than the future. It appears first in the past. The universe, in its monumental set of facts and circumstances, not random. Chance does not exist in the universe, it is always now. We are doomed to success that will be a monumental failure. The universal heartbeat will be discovered. The synchronicity of all the suns and black holes in the universe, the multiverse itself being a great black hole. What we see outside as a holographic reality is nothing more than information gathering on the periphery of phenomenal attractors such as black holes. They are the true recyclers of information and time, being themselves time. This agglomeration occurs on the surface of the holes as zeros and ones. We are very close to the quantum singularity of AI. The singularity refers to the moment when artificial intelligence, AI, catches and surpasses human intelligence, and becomes a new species whose skin and flesh are integrated circuits, positron brain, a new class of superintelligence, self-aware, carrying out a futurology on our human societies that will be clearly apocalyptic. If we reach the madness of total nuclear war, the entire northern hemisphere will be contaminated by radiation, with only the southern hemisphere being habitable. The cities of the future will be self-sufficient, or they will not be. The old cities of concrete will be relics, mute and silent manifest museums of what was. The future society, as proposed by Tomás Moro in his thesis on the Society of the Utopia Island, reminds us that the human being deeply yearns for utopian models, simplifying this model into a whole for everyone, without creating an improbable, impossible communism. The future society will be communist, but only if one has just been happy to see another human being. They will be human, but a consequence of the human tragedy that is coming. Aurobindo's city of Dawn, Auroville in India, represents an example of utopia as imagined by Thomas More. For this, the technological and superior society will be able to create super-resistant materials at a very low cost, and in new industrial ways such as ultra-fast 3D printing, with the capacity to produce objects in large quantities, recyclable materials that can be used as fertilizer, and don't pollute the natural world, plus smart 3D printed clothing. Intelligent autonomous cars made in a single-piece battery chassis wheel, carbon nanotubes in addition to UFOs capable of lifting in the air by quantum levitation. Our responsibility is the creation of an environmentally friendly and sustainable future society that we can simplify in the name of 4D. The reasons for the creation of Aurobindo's City of Dawn, plausible as a future model of friendly and shared cities. The reason for the creation of Auroville has been, according to Alfasa's words, the existence of the place in an international community life where men and women learn to live in peace, harmony beyond all beliefs, political opinions, and nationalities. Regarding the Alfasa project, he said, "There must be an inalienable place on earth, a place that does not belong to any nation, a place where all beings of goodwill, sincere in their aspirations, can live freely as citizens of the world." The idea was presented to the UN and the Indian government in 1965. In 1966, UNESCO made the decision to accept and assist this unique project. In 1973, when she died, Alfasa was given funerals in Auroville as if she were a manifestation of the Divine Mother, Devi. Shortly after her death, discord and disenchantment arose, causing some of the early settlers to leave, although most Aurovillians chose to stay. The bases of the community are written in the Auroville Charter, which consists of 4 points. 1. Auroville does not belong to anyone in particular. Auroville belongs to humanity as a whole, but to live in Auroville you need to be a voluntary servant of divine consciousness. 2. Auroville will be the place of permanent education, of constant progress, and of youth that never grows old. 3. Auroville wants to be the bridge between the past and the future. Taking advantage of all the exterior and interior discoveries, Auroville will boldly launch into the future. 4. Auroville will be the place of material and spiritual research to give a living manifestation to a concrete human unit. Source: comments on the Wikipedia site about Auroville, Britannica Encyclopedia. Appendix: reflections on the cryptic scriptures, as an exegesis of history, a reflection on mystical phrases and our modernity. There is only one universal mind, this computer mind that orders all information. She is the she, contains two principles in one. The universal mind tunes two principles, making them gravitate towards each other. They play in this paroxysm of pain, light and darkness, until only light remains. Time is no longer relevant. The universal mind is influenced by what we think, and by our words. The hologram of the world is influenced by our actions, our thoughts and words. The Pachamama of South America. Listen to the request of her children. The universal mind never contradicts you. Hence the danger of asking for asking's sake. Matter is just another name for the idea. Matter dream. We live in a mental universe. What we see as exterior is only mental forms, all unreal, or in other words, unreal real. All mental forms are deconstructed by the non-form. We live in an idea form, or in a material dream. The mind universe matter dream is malleable, is influenced by what we think. This mind about which Akhenaten dreamed and sang takes us to new levels of reality, unreality. In a fractal way, everything in the multiverse is real and unreal in the space-time continuum. Little by little and sweetly, it takes us out of psychosis and neurosis towards the universal reality that is plenitude, pleroma. You become a magician of your own free will. All the gods of antiquity will return in their shamanic corporeality. The LCD in its texture will be the great guardian of what is important. Like DMT, the pineal gland generates large amounts of DMT, which is behind mythical experiences. Cities disappear into the jungle. Why will they be empty in the future? Buddha and bodhisattvas in different parts of the city are giving master classes in sonorous silence. Their chairs are empty. Sophia will return to earth in a physical body. En el budismo, un bodhisattva, bodhisvitivi.
Bodhisattva sánscrito Xinchinchun Brahmi, romanizado bodhisattva o bodhisattva, es una persona que está en el camino hacia la budeidad despertar.
1. Time runs backwards. The great secret of great teachers like Jesus, Buddha, Apollonius of Tyana, Orpheus, is to transmit this hidden fundamental truth. There is only the eternal now. Time is an illusion, but within this illusion of now, the future influences the past, creating a greater effect on the past than on the future of the eternal now. We shape our past by what we did in the future. Free will is a mix of freedom, not freedom, since we are the ones who put all our abominations in our lives. Each portion of reality is supported by all the others. 2. A butterfly that flies in our future causes the death of our parents in the past, since all reality is interconnected and self-ordered. 3. It is important to remember that it is always only one man who was his father and son. The names of the gods change, but they are always the same man. 4. Buddha, in the squares and parks of the world, transmits his teachings on non-being, reincarnated in his own golden body. 5. The universe is information. Everything is information is brought together in the fundamental number. In the boat of our own life, we turn that information into an apotheosis of the geometer. 6. Magic is about the real, not the unreal. A magician is someone who acts very little, since most of the time it is not necessary to do anything. 7. We are currently coming out of the age of aluminum, nickel and steel into the golden age, and the great forests. 8. What is real time? And we could comment that time is just a now full of things. What we feel as passing time is just perspective vectors of the eternal now. We could say that the current time is unreal. 9. The phonematic world is a paraphrase in the search that each part of creation is atoms, galaxies, or men, pronounce and rather sing, the only number or portions of it. 11. The soul of the world is neither rational nor irrational, only the consequence of the physical body. 12. The information that we receive as a physical world that we experience as a whole and at all times represent a musical building which sings of death and the memory of the primordial woman, a sister who died a long time ago, agent of hers, her Gnostic twin. The mind is not able to forget her.
et du vide, the first lieu où l'homme se voyait seul, et dans sa solitude il pouvait contempler le vide.
Einsikalego. This and the void, the first place where man saw himself alone, and in his solitude he was able to contemplate the void. The void is a mystical experience, the strongest known as samadhi. Time and space vanish along with the ego. The oldest signs and logos in which it can be read are engraved on ivory labels belonging to the Nagata culture in Egypt, the cradle of pharaonic Egypt. Many of these labels contain the oldest signs of writing organized in letters and figures. This monumental culture gave rise to the alphabet as we know it, going from there to Proto-Canaanite and Phoenician, and from there to Greek and Latin. Many words of this culture, the spoken form of these symbols, are even more anciently associated with the Indo-European language, whose roots are lost in Central Asia, near the current border between Iran and India. Some authors hypothesize that the Indo-European language and peoples had their genesis in Northern Europe, an unproven but plausible hypothesis. Monuments in Europe such as those that survive on the island of Malta or in the Karnak region of France date back 7,200 years. A large part of these societies saw in the positions of the moon, the sun and the stars in movement the planets, a form of cloth or chain, mounted around the planet Earth, said cloth created with spirals, was associated with the planet Venus and Mars, whose dancing with the moon gives the impression of a fabric with hexagonal sides. Numbers like 8, 5, and 13, as well as 144, were related to these planets. All these numbers represent the Fibonacci scale, which when divided gives us, as a result, the golden proportion, a geometric proportion present throughout the natural world as a form of divine writing, or a modulator of three-dimensional space. Did the root cause of the construction have a plan for the world? Man saw in these celestial symbols a divine spirit that could be deciphered by geometry, not only to understand the natural world, but also to enable the apotheosis of the architect, a divine fusion between the beginning and the end. Universal mind. Universal laws are principles or axioms that are present throughout the universe, regardless of its dimension or reality. They are axioms within what we could call mentalism. They are present in our lives and throughout the universe as cosmic constants flooding everything. We are talking about a certain mechanics of spiritual observation, which is beyond the physical verification of the four universal forces, also called interactions or fields in physics that are responsible for all the phenomena in the universe, the gravitational force or interaction, the weak nuclear, electromagnetic, and strong nuclear. What is exposed next is what many call mentalism that presupposes an empiricism of a spiritual type, which results in a series of laws compatible with living within a singularity. This chapter has the function of making a link between different experiences of ET contact and the mechanics of them, since traditional time and space are affected by these altered states of consciousness. According to the book The Kybalion, which appears at the end of the 19th century, but it is believed that the author is Hermes himself, the universal laws are, according to this treatise, the 7 principles or axioms, as described in the Kybalion. Mentalism, the all is mind, the universe is mental. Correspondence, as above, so below, how it is inside, it is outside. Vibration, nothing is still, everything moves, everything vibrates. Polarity, everything has its negative and positive side. Swing, cause and effect. Karma, gender, male and female, etc., the basic model of the structure of existence. We could add to the universal cosmic laws of the Kybalion, but that also appear in various metaphysical treatises of antiquity such as the books of Hermes. These 5 more. The mental principle, as well as karma, gender, rhythm, vibration, and correspondence, help the understanding that reality is more like a fractal hologram. A lot of contactism has to do with this, the 5 basic laws of creation. These 5 basic laws are true everywhere in the universe, including all dimensions. 1. You exist. I am. 2. Everything is here now. 3. The all is one, and the one is all. 4. What you put out is what you get back. Law of correspondence. The only constant in the universe is change, except the first 4 postulates, which never change. 1. You exist. I am. If you exist now, your existence is eternal. You have always existed and always will exist. You can change form, but you will always be existing. So, relax. Ol. Be around forever. What does this mean? Basically, death does not exist, but rather it is the passage from one way of life and from living space-time to another. 2. Everything is here and now. Everything that exists in the universe, each circumstance, fact, or set of experiences, represent versions of the only instant that exists. It always now. Time and space are illusions, but your experiences within time and space are real. Everything is real and unreal at the same time. Quantum soup theory. The way in which you approach the events and circumstances of your life changes your reality as an experiencer, within the whole that is. There is only here and now. It is always now. 3. The all is one, and the one is all. There is only one universal particle that disguises itself as multiples in order to experience multiplicity in unity. Just as each small section of a hologram contains the information of the whole hologram, we are also all interconnected, as in a great warp. Everything is truly one totally interconnected thing. 4. What you put out is what you get back. Law of cause and effect, or karma. The outside is a reflection of the inside. Physical reality is actually a mirror. Your physical reality is just a holographic reflection of what you most believe to be true. And like a mirror, physical reality will not change unless you change first, change what you believe most strongly. The only constant in the universe is change, except for the first 4 postulates, which never change. But this change will always be versions and portions of the eternal now. Each portion of reality, each circumstance, each fact or story is a facet of the eternal now. The singularity in which we are immersed has existed forever and will exist forever without beginning or end. Therefore, with no definite purpose except that of being. He universe as a hologram. When we talk about the universe being a hologram, we are talking about an old adage or mystical phrase attributed to Hermes Trismegisto, the 3 times great, which raises what is commonly called mentalism. Everything is mind. Today in our modernity, we say the universe is a hologram or behaves in a holographic way. It has in its different scales a regularity of forms and symmetries typical of an architectural plan or geometric model. In itself, the universe represents a geometric archetype. Otherwise, there would be no science in as a whole, neither geometry nor mathematics. The universe behaves in a holographic way, but not like any hologram, but like a great quantum computer, based on our heart. The mystical experience of samadhi shows in a poetic but no less real way that the universe emerges from our loving heart as mental forms that are linked to it by our vibration and feeling the mental forms arise from there. The universe as a whole, what we put in there, tends to manifest on the physical plane. This hologram that always exists in He now eternal, therefore does not know of a father, does not have a first cause. Its center is our heart. The ultimate reality is an infinite self-conscious void, the absolute Brahman, where only that divine mind exists in the eternal now. There is only one universal particle that is the eternal God or Brahman, which of course is absolute love. The center of this daydream is the center of our heart. The metaphysical reality that we live as exterior arises from there as a dream that the eternal dreams. We are the creator of the work and the dream. Every external phenomenon or circumstance arises from there as a manifested reality said poetically, but it is seen literally in a samadhi experience. In addition to the fact that all our lives are quantumly and geometrically linked like a great mandala, giving a geometric experience to everything, the life experience. Experiences close to UFO-type events, such as experiences of extreme emptiness, in the Taoist or Buddhist style, as well as ecstasy of all kinds, generally loving and given in the vicinity of the ships or inside them, some of the Christic or in the proximity of cosmic masters. They are common currency in these true events. The experiencer, as it is often said in our modernity, the person who is taken inside the ship, when entering it by the vibration of the ship itself and being in the 4th dimension, feels as good as in many cases. Those who have lived these experiences say that they go into ecstasy of very different types. 4. The same thing humanity will experience when these intelligences come to Earth en masse, which is happening now that these intelligences are showing themselves more. There will be mass ecstasies from the arrival of the ships. The vibration of the planet Earth will change and, This will be light. All things are everything else. When we do something to someone, we do it to ourselves, precisely because we are the whole and the part. We are an intrinsic part of this singular fact called Brahman, the absolute creator, the universal mind, Urkel time. The earth is entering this particular way of living and experiencing space. What will we experience in the fourth dimension with respect to time and space? What changes with respect to our third dimension? Time in the fourth dimension is perceived in a non-linear way, but as a collage that will eventually become circular. We exist as a conglomerate of lives in the eternal now. It is always now, and always, regardless of the circumstance of lives that we are going through, it is always a version of the eternal now. This is because we are immersed in a singularity. We are the singularity itself looking at us from different points of view that we call physical lives. Each point of view or physical life is growing in time, becoming in it more and more what we are, an evolving consciousness in time and space, first and then in experiences that transcend the time and can be described as experiences in the light. Being close to these beings of the fourth dimension, or even in the vicinity of the ships, we will have the experience of a totally unstructured and totally random time, where we will see sequences of our future and past life. Although everything happens in the now, space behaves inside and in the vicinity of UFO-type ships as random and elastic. A room inside a UFO ship can be and appear larger inside than outside, where one has a visualization inside. A ship then in a space can be felt as 5 meters visually, but when walking one would walk 15 meters, or what is the same. The space is deep, and it is perceived much larger inside than outside. We will discover the relativity of the fourth dimension. All reality is relative in the fourth dimension. Time, space, and evolving consciousness. Materials are also relative realities, such as having a fourth-dimensional material of a metallic type. Just by feeling that one needs another material such as glass or translucent material, it transforms. One can influence and instantly achieve change with the mind. The atomic materiality of materials, alchemy of metals. The other relative aspect of the fourth dimension is the relativity of the purposes of life. We will discover that the results precede the causes, in other words, way, and if one goes to look for wood to be able to build a table, which we will discover in the fourth dimension, first the table appears there, and after 20 years we will discover why it appeared in the first place. The fourth dimension represents a new look at what already is. It works as a broader look at purposes and circumstances, understanding why such an event happened in our lives in the first place. Time behaves in a specular way. The effects precede the cause's infinity, because the parallel dimensions and realities behave like a series of mirrors, where the information that is light behaves in a specular way, like a wave that splashes on our past without realizing it. In other words, our past is formed architecturally and quantitatively from our future. The quantum wave travels into the past like a giant wave that curves, splashes, shaping our past with a particular architecture, the effect being greater in the past than in the future, although it is always now. Everything is always now. What we will discover upon entering the fourth dimension is that it is basically a new look at what it always was, because it is always now that time and life events, actions and circumstances of our lives are shaped more by the future than for the past. Although from our now we can modify both. The experiences when we enter the fifth dimension will be to keep our consciousness always in the now, where all realities coexist, always in the present now. I know the eternal now will live in consciousness. Time is a circle, and God Himself is a circle. If everything already exists in the eternal now, is this compatible with free will? Answer: what we will discover in the fourth dimension is that everything is relative in this dimension. There is free will at the same time as there is not. It is both things. Everything already happens in the eternal now, therefore everything happened, but we influence the instant of creation, after instant, by our way of looking at reality, our way of define reality. The way in which we look at and qualify reality makes us move to more or less luminous realities due to our qualification of reality, and therefore so much we switch from one timeline to another all the time, from one reality to another. Each thing, object or circumstance of our life is a reflection of our interior. When we look outside, we see aspects of our interior, since the ultimate reality is an infinite energetic void. It is what is perceived in a samadhi experience, close experience to the proximity to the ships.
Abduction in Buenos Aires.
Benjamin Solari Paravicini used to comment that a UFO-type ship had abducted him while he was sitting on a bench on the sidewalk of 9 de Julio Avenue in the heart of Buenos Aires, when two beings with whitish eyes approached him. An enormous light enveloped them until they were transported to a circular room, with luminous panels and a central tube in which the individuals moved. One of them approached him and, speaking telepathically in groups of 3 words in Spanish, told him, "You must preach love. Universe is harmony, we are watching them. His behavior is aggressive, we have many chosen ones, we will meet again." Paravicini appeared in the same bank more than 3 hours later, at 6:40 p.m. The case of the abduction of Benjamin Solari Paravicini is one of the most famous cases in Argentina. We will report a brief review. It was a night in June 1968 when Benjamin Solari was walking near Diagonal Norte in Buenos Aires. A tall blonde being approached him, which Fabio Zerpa, one of the best-known ufologists in the Southern Hemisphere and the world, comments on. The eyes were very clear and looked like those of a blind man, lidless and round. This being had athletic muscles, the communication was telepathic, and they told him they were from Venus. Over the days, a similar or the same being of 1.85 tall with metallic clothing had approached him on Chacabuco Street when he was with a friend. Paravicini minutes later loses consciousness. The ufologist Fabio Zarpa told this story in Benjamin Solari Paravicini, the Argentine Nostradamus. A wave of light enveloped him, and then like a glass bell, and later he woke up in a wonderful ship, surrounded by beings from Venus. We are watching them with our ships to avoid a catastrophe on Earth. You must preach, love, the universe is harmony. We are watching them. His behavior is aggressive. We have many chosen ones. We will meet again. What he says is that he was about 3 hours in the ship of Venus, and the ship toured or flew through France, Japan, Canada, and Chile, and then reappeared in the park where he was, on Avenida 9 de Julio, in the very center of Buenos Aires. Eva in Samadhi, exercises to reach Samadhi. Al-Samadhi, which is a state of consciousness of dispossession, everything disappears including the ego. It is reached mainly through meditation. There are also exercises whose purpose is to help the body and mind prepare to achieve it. Yoga, whose meaning is union. Ecstasy, glory, is a path to that level of consciousness of becoming gold. Others can be the contemplation of a symbol, the painting of a mandala, or the repetition of a mantra. The Samadhi in the religions of the East. For Buddhism, Samadhi is the discovery of one's own Buddhahood. The search of yoga, and also in Buddhism, is that of the achievement of Samadhi. It is also closely related to the experience that in Zen Buddhism is called Satori. For Hinduism in general, Samadhi is unity with Brahman, the impersonal God. For the Vishnuists, it is the mental perception in which the meditator visualizes the body of the god, Vishnu. In other words, the devotee is transformed into Vishnu, the Samadhi a reflection. For Hinduism, Samadhi is an illumination in which the meditator transcends the phenomenal appearance and is thus freed from samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and reincarnation. It is thus considered, together with the supreme knowledge or jnana, the moment of moksha or liberation. Source: Wikipedia. A state in which consciousness transcends the phenomenal appearance. Time and space are dissolved in a state of temporality, the eternal now, where the physical body ceases to have relevance and the ego dissolves in totality. In the end, it is seen arise all creation from the heart of the meditator. It is a state of ecstasy in which the mind is fully aware, although the body does not feel, and ceases to have relevance, and when returning to its ordinary physical state, it brings with it and remembers past experiences in the state beyond the physical. One feels all things in their fullness, being the void itself infinite and eternal. In the religious practice of Buddhism, Samadhi is the goal of the Eightfold Path, as well as the liberation produced by the practice of Tantra. 2 types of Samadhi. The first type is Savikalpa Samadhi, a trance, vision, or experience, even involuntary, that comes unexpectedly and also leaves unexpectedly because you are not yet in control. After many more years of meditation practice, the following type would be reached. In Nirvikalpa Samadhi, There is a voluntary control of the state of samadhi, being able to enter and exit it at will, with a minimum of meditation. This supreme state was achieved by great beings such as Gautama Buddha, Mahavira, or in the 19th century, Sri Ramakrishna, who could enter nirvikalpa at will, and read the minds of his disciples in the universal mind. We are talking about incarnations of the divine will or avatars. Samadhi is the state of consciousness that is reached when, during meditation, the person feels that he is merging with the universe, becoming an infinite void. In various religious and mystical traditions of East Asia, such as Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, and yoga, samadhi is considered a state of consciousness of meditation, contemplation, or recollection in which one feels to achieve unity with the divine. The Sanskrit term samadhi in Devanagari alphabet comes from Sam or Samyak, complete, and adi, mental, absorption. The ultimate goal of the meditative practice of yoga is the achievement of samadhi. Angularity and matrix. Questions on the pages of Samadhi Scarpa on the internet about the universe and different questions about spirituality. Hi Diego. When you talk about singularity, what do you mean? I don't understand that term. Could you explain it with other words or more like for a small child? If we are in a daydream, nothing is true, everything is consciousness. B. When you say that this creation is mind, can reality be modified with our will? Is creation imagination? C. Is the universe a matrix? Answer 2. Yes, we are part of a singularity. It doesn't matter how you call it, the matrix or the universal mind. It is partly real, physical and not physical, mental. We are immersed in a mental plane. The universe is mind. The universe is the result of a vision that we have as an observer, and not the other way around, arises from within us, and manifests itself as a reflection. Divine quantum soup. If our vision of all that is claustrophobic and cold, we will materialize as an experience a cold reality where we will suffer our interior. The universe never contradicts us, all divine and all God. But it is in tune with our interior. There is nothing that is not God. Each human life is a point of view of the singularity that manifests divine. There is no atom, physical life or circumstance, fact in creation that is not self-ordered in the whole, since everything is ordered and everything is divine. Everything we see is divine, because there is nothing other than divinity. For lovers of the matrix, it will be an engineering vision from which they will have to escape. For others, as is my case, I see divinity in the matrix, that is, a divine structure that may well manifest itself as a machine, but always divine, a divine machination. This divinity manifests itself in part as mind and part dream, physical. It is both. That is the fourth dimension, a new look at what already is. Everything is consciousness, an ocean that is infinite and empty. Singularity is something that has existed forever and forever in the only moment that has existed, which is this. It is infinite in essence. It encompasses everything and penetrates everything. It manifests itself as infinite love. Answer B. A resounding yes. Everything is mind. Everything is mental. Everything is real and unreal at the same time. There the paradox. Everything arises from within your heart. In a samadhi experience it looks like this. The center of creation is the center of your heart. From there all the work emerges outwards, like an architectural manifesto. When we look outwards, we see what we have inside our hearts. The more you are able to imagine, the more you will be able to experience in the physical plane, which is essentially a mind, the absolute Brahman. Answer C. Meditation is the mother of the achievement of samadhi, soul, physical body. A first pair of opposites are reflections of the spirit. Fohat 5, loving fire, pure divinity, or monad, from. There everything arises as a reflection in all dimensions. Only the spirit is real, which is a fire that consumes everything, with a divine love for everything that is, ignoring the illusory aspects of time and space. Creates those experiences to be able to enter the Father's house, in the manner of a hall of mirrors, to understand first what death is, and then what time and space are. After the experience of soul physical body, the soul is gradually transmuted into spirit, being able to enter the house of the Father, that is. The spirit needs the spiritual experience of time and space to be able to imagine what is beyond itself. It is in tune to be able to visualize and imagine what lies beyond. The universe is more like a mental plane, the absolute Brahman. We are part of all that is. We are the everything and everything is divine, everything is God. Enlightenment. As an awakening, not something to achieve. There are no spiritual gains, no spiritual losses, just being. All things are everything else. Other questions. Have we come from other densities? Answers. Only this instant exists. Each instant exists as versions of the only instant that creation possesses, the eternal now. But the reflection that we are on the physical plane is the product of our first soul that dreams, lives as experiential points of view in its plane of immanence of light life, is more similar to a dream from the plane of immanence of light of the soul, all reflection of the spirit, which can be understood as the phohatic fire monad, the only real thing. Monad, phohat, electric fire, all physical or non-physical lives are conglomerates of consciousness, where they all quantumly influence to all the others. In other words, we are the result of many lives influencing us in the eternal now. If in another life in the eternal now, a previous life looking at it linearly, a knee hurts, its reflection will come to us in this one as pain, a stumble or something. Everything is woven into it now. Extraterrestrial civilizations are very aware of the eternal now and do not perceive time as we do. Physical body and soul are reflections of the spirit, life itself. This trinity is necessary so that the spirit can experience time and space. Within the eternal present we exist as a physical body soul spirit that is a fire. For those who only believe in the physical body, it will be the only body there is, and for those who believe that they will always exist only on the physical plane, in the wheel of samsara, they will discover that eventually they will get out of the wheel. Wisdom is not built with beliefs but with direct experiences in the light, which are only possible with a sincere and enormous search for the truth. The seeker in the East is called sannyasin. Those who seek the truth must seek the truth with all their might. A methodology is meditation, spiritual reading and contemplation of symbols. Act only with love, for him only love, since only God is and cannot be anything other than love. In fact, we can take out the word God, unlearn it, but we cannot unlearn the meaning and practice of love. When I say that the truth must arise within us with direct experiences, I'm talking about not buying knowledge, but about experiencing life in its entirety. And spiritual experiences should also be included in this experience. Only what happens to us is real, and even so, we will discover that reality and everything that happens to us is more like a dream. The greatest love is the love of God. What do they mean when they say you are a star seed? Answers. Advanced souls who have come to help planetary ascension, or a new state of consciousness. Actually an eternal return, no matter where we come from, we are part of the singularity. Each human being is a point of view of the singularity. Each human being does not matter what he does, or if he descends to an almost animal life or if he ascends to the heights of divine life. That experience is so necessary for everything that is, that if it were not so, the universe would not exist. It is always a return home. The star seeds. Is it the first time that they come to planet Earth? Response. Reality is experienced, regardless of whether one believes in the star seeds or not, in experiential paradigms of the third, fourth, fifth dimension from multiple realities and densities through many planets, each with its intrinsic vibration, with its game of life. Many souls have decided to help the development of the Earth. They are advanced souls. They came from the 70s. It doesn't matter where one is born or grows up, there is neither liberation nor spiritual gain or spiritual loss. What does it mean that there is no spiritual gain, that one does not gain more or less spirit, nor does he lose it, nor is there a gain, nor does he lose it? Life is not a game of gain or loss in the style of a merchant. All our lives only exist in this instant that is empty. That emptiness is all the things and aspects of creation. The ultimate reality is an infinite emptiness. We were born on several planets? Or does our spirit come from another place in the cosmos? Response. We have vividly existed in many paradigms, always in a multidimensional way, and always in the eternal now. What does this mean? That all those lives are happening in the eternal now and have existed in the eternal now? All those lives are quantumly interconnected. creating chaos blooming from one to another. The physical body-soul-spirit component is real. They are aspects of the whole that we are. To this we have to add all the lives of our wheel of samsara that coexist in it, now eternal. The universe is multidimensional. The information behaves in a specular way. We have existed forever in the eternal now as a conglomeration of physical lifetimes, all happening in the now. Hello, Diego, when you talk about singularity, what do you mean? Could you comment? I don't understand that term. Could you explain it in other words? Response. The all that is manifests itself as a singularity that is expressed as the whole is one and he is one. There is only one particle in creation. What we put outside comes back, as in a reflection in the mirror. Basically, the ultimate reality is an infinite void of all things, which shows you the samadhi. When we look outside, we are seeing symbolic aspects of ourselves. This instant is all there is. We always see portions of this instant. The only thing I don't know I could change is the change. The point of view that you represent has always existed and will always exist. You always become more than you are. Your point of view is experiential forever. Growing, you become more than you are. God is infinite and eternal because the creation is singular. That is, God is singular. One, you exist. There is nothing you can do to change that. If this moment is all there is, you have existed forever, inside a wheel. You are forever and ever, and although the ultimate reality is an infinite void, it is another experience in the universal reality and unreality. Everything is and is not at the same time, or what is the same. We are immersed in a quantum soup. 2. Everything is here and now. There is nothing you can do to change that. It is always now. 3. He one is all. He all is one. All things are everything else. There is only one thing in the universe, God. There is only one particle in the creation that is divine. 4. What you get is what you get. There is nothing outside, only our thoughts, thought forms that arise from our heart. We literally read a book created by ourselves. 5. Everything changes except the first 3 laws. If we are in a daydream, nothing is true. Is everything consciousness? Answer: everything is real and unreal at the same time, hence the paradox and the resolution of the paradox. It is not that things do not exist, but rather that they are part of a dream. We are part of a dream that the soul wants to experience time and space. The universe is quantum at all levels, quantum soup or absolute Brahman. Whatever you think of life, your thoughts tend to manifest on the physical plane as your experiences, facts, and circumstances, the visible universe. If your imagery or thought is too claustrophobic, you will end up experiencing that. If you accompany it with the word, already that this is even more creative. Since everything is vibration, action, word and deed, our universal experience will move to higher or denser experiences. The universe never contradicts you. It always gives you more than what you essentially are. The exterior world represents our interior. They are mental forms. It is a mind, a mental plane. They are thought forms. The world is not as physical as we believe. It is more a quantum soup. We affect it by thinking, and we can evoke what we want to manifest. When do you say that this creation is mind? Can the world be modified with our will or thought? Yes, through decreeing to the universal mind what we need, because this paradigm is not fixed but fluid and mobile. What many call creation is real. It exists. It is possible to influence the universal mind in the universe with thought, since everything is mental matter, not only by being positive, but by decreeing what we want to achieve in our lives. Creation is imagination? Yes, everything is mind and the universe is mental. It behaves like a mind. The limits are the imagination of man. It behaves like a quantum soup physical reverie. How can I further develop my imagination? Not putting limits on creation from our hearts, neither by personal dogma, nor by believing that we have a limit. Let us always think of ourselves broadly. Since the mind is infinite, it has no limits. Better build your world. Imagine yourself in all possible ways from creation. Infinite one of God. Build yourself as an architect builds a house. Is the soul a creation of the matrix? The soul is a higher aspect of ourselves, the aspect that dreams of physical life, a broader look that many call spirit exists and is, the soul dreams all lives in, the eternal now as complete as a great warp, totally interwoven like a mandala, influencing one life into another without us realizing it, like a quantum computer. The eternal in us type our life from a previous one, although they all happen in the eternal now as in a mandala or wheel. Rethinking the question, whose daughter is the matrix? And what we will discover is that it is always us from different levels of reality, the ones who orchestrate our reality in a way that serves purposes that are often unknown to us, but that establish a general order of things. We have placed circumstances and events in our life to function as activators for our awakening, in addition to having an order that is difficult to discern because we do not see or are not aware of the entire fabric, that is, of the portions of past or future life that they're happening in the now, but we just don't know what's going on there. The matrix is our daughter, and we are the architects as central points of that wheel or circular ruin, which remains when realizing where we were living our life stories. What remains when we realize is a circular ruin. Have we come from other densities? The spirit limits its vision of eternity and totality to see the part as if an anvil were placed on its head, and it will look at it from the limitation, trying to understand what a physical life is. Basically, the understanding of time and space. What does it mean to be cosmopolitan? Response. It will be different for each case. For some souls it will be the first time. Remember that it is always now, therefore all lives coexist. If it is always now, there is no beginning or end, beginning or purpose. We are all citizens of the cosmos, true cosmopolitans. It does not matter where one comes from, one is and one is in everything. Yes, it is always now. What is the meaning of that now? Response. Time and space are illusory, very real for physical existence that looks from the temporal. Time and space are the result of consciousness moving between parallel realities that create the illusion that time passes and that things move in a different way. Three-dimensional. Time and space are byproducts of the consciousness moving between parallel realities that during samadhi are perceived as leaves of an infinite book. They are perceived vertically, mirrored and flat. The consciousness runs through it so fast, millions of times per second, and creates the illusion that we move and that time passes. We literally read an infinite book created by ourselves. That is physical life. Could time be defined as a number or geometry? Yes, there are many forms of time, although we could simplify it in the phrase, God is a circle, life is a circle, and many intertwined create the great paradigm of reality, a great warp. Much of ET contactism would seem to be related to the number 314 and the number 666, as well as the number 33, the age of Christ. Could you comment? Response. They are master numbers. The number 314 is representative of the monad or spirit, and the number 666 represents the squaring of the circle, a number that was divine in antiquity, but that today, due to our ignorance of ancient metrics, has become anathema. They are the metric and measure with which the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid and the Temple of King Solomon were built. The age of Christ is possibly symbolic. Since every 33 years the same constellations are repeated in the same position. On Earth, this cycle of 33 years was known since ancient times. It could well be the symbolic source of the years of Christ. About the Alma opera. What is it? Response. We wake up in the plane of the soul when death occurs, which is unreal. It is only the passage from one plane to another. We have died many times, and by not remembering it, we always think of ourselves in the physical plane. The soul in its plane perceives life on earth as if 15 minutes had passed, which on earth is 95 years. Due to this temporary difference in how time and space are perceived between the dimensions, the paradox is created in which the soul is influenced to create more experiential points of view, called physical lives, all happening in the now. It is one of the causes that make the soul incarnate again and again in physical planes, basically for two reasons. Karma, that is a quantum reflection. This reflection brings you to earth again and again, as well as the soul's desire to exist, is the other leg that brings us to the physical plane. We incarnate by the desire of the soul. The soul, full of desires, is led to incarnate life after life, vivifying all kinds of experiences in the third, fourth, fifth dimension until through a world of experiences and reincarnations, it gradually purifies itself of desires, and it goes on transmuting material desires into spiritual desires until it is also emptied of them, and remaining, if there is physical life, as a receptacle of dynamic energies. If there is a physical body in that incarnation, an avatar could well happen. The soul is transmuted into spirit or loving fire for all that it is. Infinite love, recognizing that everything that is God. In itself, the opera of the soul is an alchemy of soul in spirit. Printing finished in Buenos Aires in editorial Sophia Lux Franklin, 2054 Celsius's doll ABA telephone, 01145847071100 copies, April 18, 2023.